allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone.
My own chair.
I have no announcements. Is there any public comment from the board?
Sure. I would just say happy 100 day. In the Lunenburg Public Schools, it was 100 days. So if you had a little kid, you had to pick out 100 of something last night. We did paper hearts, cut individually. And then also, oftentimes somebody's here, but just condolences to Chief Marino with his father passing would just be something I'd want to add. That's all.
Yes. Any public comment from the public? Please.
My name is Dave Rogers. I live at 82 Highland Street, and I'm here to direct my questions, and I don't expect answers tonight, to the town manager. When you presented your information to the Finance Committee, specifically with the capital plan, there was $220,000 that was earmarked for the DPW area with specific regard to taking out some tanks. And in addition to that, if my numbers are correct, there was $110,000 that was allocated in the FY 2016 budget, which would have come into existence, last year?
Fiscal 17.
17? Okay. So in the aggregate, there's $330,000 for that project. And I would like, when you present your recommendations for the budget on Thursday, to give us a more in-depth analysis of that situation. $330,000 is a lot of money, obviously. And I'd like to know in more specificity what's going on and how those funds are allocated. Okay. In addition, I took it upon myself to look into some fleet management programs, and there are some out there. The city of Fitchburg has it, a program that seems to be working very well. So I'm thinking that maybe now is the time to be doing something along those lines. And it would reduce, obviously, the capital outlay. And I'm told, they have great documentation, et cetera, et cetera. So with that in mind, if you could include that in your presentation, I would appreciate it.
The last part, what would you like me to include regarding fleet management?
Well, yeah, Fitchburg has a fleet management program. They did away with their storage of gasoline and oil. Diesel fuel, rather, I'm told. And they have gone into a fleet management program, which I think, it fits nicely, potentially, with us, because you don't have to have environmental concerns. And it's just something I think that we should look into. And, I'd suggest, maybe checking with our neighbors in Fitchburg to see what we could find out. But the main thrust is, it started out at 110, now it's 330, and I'd just like to know where that money is going and the allocation of same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, we are going to talk a little bit about the capital plan and the 5-year forecast tonight, but not in as much depth as we did at the Finance Committee meeting. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good evening, Adam Burney, Land Use Director. I just wanted to start getting the word out. You may have seen some of the postings around town. On the 25th of this month, the Planning Board will be holding public hearings for their non-medical marijuana bylaws that will be presented at the May town meeting. This includes 6 items for prohibition and 1 item for regulation. So if you're interested in hearing, learning, commenting, please come out on the 25th.
All righty. Our first appointment is for a public hearing for our Class 2 auto dealer license application by KB Agyeman, doing business as Cars LLC at 555 Chase Road. Is there an applicant here? Please, sir. As you approach the podium, I'd like to read the hearing notice. The licensing authority will hold a public hearing on February 5th, 2019 at 7:05 at the Town Hall, 17 Main Street, second floor, Lunenburg, on the application submitted by KG Agyeman, DBA Cars LLC, for a Class II auto dealer license. The license is to be exercised at premises located at 555 Chase Road, Lunenburg, Mass. Board of Selectmen Licensing Authority. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
You tell us who you are and a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, my name is KB Agyeman, and then I live in Leominster, 2177 Street, and I have been doing this for about 28 years, and I want to come to Lunenburg to do a good business. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All in order?
Yes, I can take those.
Is there any questions for the applicant or any comments?
How many cars do you expect to have on the property?
8.
8?
Yes.
Any comments from the public, either for or against this application? Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Move we approve the Class 2 auto dealer license for 555 Chase Road.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck.
Thank you.
Our next appointment is a poll petition hearing for a joint pole relocation on Sunny Hill Road. Again, I will read the hearing notice. In conformity with the requirements of Section 22 of Chapter 166 of the General Laws, you are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held in the Town Hall, 17 Main Street, second floor, in the Joseph F. Bellata Meeting Room, Lunenburg, Mass., on Tuesday, February 5th, 2019, at 7 p.m. Upon petition of Verizon New England for permission to erect or construct and a location for a line of wires, poles, and such other fixtures as may be necessary to sustain or protect the wires of the line for the transmission of electricity upon, along, across, or under the following public ways of said town. Sunny Hill Road, relocate one solely owned pole numbered T16 to a point on the northeasterly side of Sunny Hill Road, approximately 914 feet northwesterly from the center line of Elm Street. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Bill Wallace, representing Verizon on this petition. The pole petition is for the movement of an existing pole that's in front of 325 Sunny Hill Road. The pole will move approximately 50 feet away from, using Elm Street as your reference, about 50 feet down to, so that it's on the property line, and it'll be away from in front of 325, where it looks like they may use that area for parking, I'm not sure. But stay right in line, no additional lines to this particular pole. Pretty straightforward.
What's in there?
Take any questions?
So what's the reason that you're moving the pole?
Yeah, moving the pole, to put it on the property line where it should be so that it can feed 325 existing, and there seems to be a vacant lot there that may be developed someday. That would be difficult to serve from where the pole is now, which is pretty much in front of the picture window of 325. So that'll allow it to serve 325 existing and anything that might eventually get built on the lot that's right side, right?
And 325 is fine with the move?
I assume so. I don't know. I have not personally spoken to them.
You did notify abutters.
Yeah. Yeah, all the butters have
We'll
been
ask
notified.
if anybody's here. Any other questions from the board? Is anyone here want to speak for or against this petition? Okay, I'll close the hearing.
Thank you.
Move we approve the poll petition as submitted.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No.
Sure.
Okay, Phyllis, you got one to sign by yourself. And then the rest are us.
Jamie's still gonna sign one of them, but go ahead.
Yeah, that one's Phyllis. Okay, I think I get all the rest. Did I get whatever on this one? Oh, that's quick too. Okay. Alrighty. Our third agenda item, we're going to defer at this time the request for a pilot pay in lieu of taxes for 270 Electric Ave. We'll defer that to a later date. And as we're a little early on the 725, Karen, are you ready? Yeah. You need a minute? No, I'm fine. Okay, come on. We'll move down to the quarterly financial report till we get to 725.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Second quarter revenues and expenditures for the period ending December 31st, 2018. I can tell you that everything's right where we would expect it to be at this time. On the revenue side, we've collected 50.39% of our estimated revenues for 2019, or $20,484,028. Local receipts, we've received 32.7% of our FY19 local receipt estimate. All of the estimates are generally on target. There are a few things that are above target. Some of those items include fees, which are at 61% of what we estimated, departmental revenue, which is also at 61% of what we estimated, and investment income, which is just about 63% of what we estimated. There's one large item that's currently under our target, and that's motor vehicle excise. It's currently at 16%, but the reason for that is because we do the billing for the 2019 motor vehicle excise in the third quarter, so we should start to realize those revenues at the end of the third quarter. As far as taxes go, we have collected 49% of that estimate, or $13,029,051. And state aid, the same thing. We've collected 49.97% of that estimate, or $4,405,504. So on the revenue side, we're at 50%, which is what we would like to see at this point in the fiscal year. On the expenditure side, we are at 50.3% of budgeted expenditures, or $20,435,073. Going through the expenditure report, there was just a few things that I wanted to point out.
Excuse me for a second. We don't have anything,
There's one.
No, it should be in there. Elaine put it in.
what's it called?
Second quarter.
Fiscal 19, second quarter revenues, expenditures, and summary.
Am I looking in the wrong place?
Excuse us, what?
Thank you, sorry.
It was hot off the press today. I was like, I don't know if you have it or not. But you do, so that's good. On the appropriation side, one of the things that I noted in the summary was that elections was at a current deficit of $2,053.44. I did speak with our town clerk, and we are anticipating receipt of some state revenue for the early voting and the extended polling hours that will eliminate this deficit, so there shouldn't be any need to have to do any adjusting there. One of the other items was snow removal, one of our favorites, and at the time, at the close of this quarter, we had a balance of $98,000 in that account, and hopefully, like I said, Mother Nature will be kind to us, and we won't have a deficit at the end of the snow season that we need to deal with in the budget process. Let's see. What else? The only other account in the review that I know that we are going to have an issue with, and the fire chief has made us aware of that, was his vehicle maintenance account. And that was due to the repair costs for engine 4, the $14,000 expenditure that he had to make. So we will definitely have to do some type of an adjustment in that account prior to the close of the fiscal year, either through internal transfers or through a reserve fund transfer or through a special town meeting budget adjustment. Other than that, like I said, the expenditures are right on target. The overall expenditures / encumbrances are at 50%. That's what we would expect to see at this point in time, so everything's looking good.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. We're still a little bit ahead of our hearing time. Want to do the town manager report?
Okay, this little new format I'm trying out. If you notice, it's they're just a different platform of newsletter. So the town facilities, an update. Town Hall, the handicapped accessible bathroom. Monty Tech began the Town Hall handicapped accessible bathroom project on January 25th, and this is expected to be completed in about 2 months. Thank you to our facilities technician, Kit Walker, building commissioner, Gary Rhodes, the IT staff that will assist with relocation of the copier, and the students and faculty at Monty Tech for working on this project. The relocation of the Veteran Service Officer's office has officially happened. He's moved from the Eagle House to an office in the Ritter Memorial Building that's more accessible. The Veteran Service Officer's hours have not changed, and contact information can be found on the website. He will be going on the 3rd Friday of the month. Instead of office hours at the Ritter Building, he'll be going to the Veterans Breakfast at the Eagle House. Update on a Tier 3 Complete Streets application. The DPW director and I met with World Tech Engineering on January 23rd to review the projects we submitted and how we can propose to amend the application for the next round in April. After reviewing our application and all the other projects in the prioritization plan, we reached a consensus that the best application would be a single project application that meets most of the criteria for complete streets. World Tech Engineering will be putting together a draft proposal to present to the board by the beginning of March for the village area Memorial Drive improvements. Updates to the town website. As discussed at our January 15th meeting, certain changes have been made to the homepage, including moving charter, bylaws, and important documents to the top menu, and adding town calendar and town meetings and town finances as buttons on the middle of the homepage to make these more prominent. The title of the Get Connected button was also changed to Citizen Engagement and Transparency Center. You can check out the new changes on our website at lunenburgmass.gov. I'm going to skip over the capital plan item, as we'll get to that on the agenda. This is also, you can see a link to the Finance Committee budget hearing schedule if you click on that middle button. Update on the business brochure. The land use director, members from the business community, staff from Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, and I held our final meeting to review the business brochure that MRPC created as part of District Local Technical Assistance Program funds. The material on the brochure highlights conservation areas, parks and recreation areas, the farmers market, and large working farms. Creation of the brochure highlights the town's natural resources and also increases awareness of these locations to residents who may not know where public access to trails and conservation lands are located. There are a few minor edits to be made, including putting a color copy of the town seal in the cover, adding the URL for the Lunenburg Business Association, denoting that there is an associated cost with the teen center, and adding photo credits. We'll be printing some hard copies to be left at certain locations, and we'll be putting the digitized form on the town website. And there is a copy in your Google folder of the draft, but I can hand it out. And there's a copy on the table there if anyone wants to see it. This is essentially going to be the front. It's going to be a foldable brochure, if you can imagine that, folding up to trifold. And this is the back part of the map.
Very colorful. Looks good.
We were all happy with the product, and I think it will be useful information for people to have.
Do you know when it will be available?
As soon as they send us those small changes in the format, we can put it up on the website, and then Adam and I are going to work on how we're going to get printed hard copies.
Great.
An update on the permitting guidebook. The planning board approved the permitting guidebook created by Montechusett Regional Planning Commission recently, and it will be posted on the town website shortly. And hard copies will be made available at the Ritter Memorial Building in Town Hall. District local technical assistance program funds were used to pay for the technical assistance received from MRPC staff to create and work with the town to create this guidebook that will assist customers with projects of any type and scale to address how they file permits.
That's a digital
Yes.
document, right? Yeah, okay.
Yep, but there'll be a printed version at the Ritter Building and the Town Hall. Up some highlights from the department head meeting from January. The library, the Turkey Hill Middle School kids have been visiting the library, and this pilot program is currently being reviewed by the library and the school. The Library Board of Trustees is currently performing a search for the next library director and will review applications in February. The library has a new program called Library of Things, so library patrons can sign out such items as pickleball gear, ukuleles, and badminton gear. The fire department, the new online burning permit system is up and running and is working out well. The IT director is currently busy working with school and town on their IT budgets. The police department, there are a couple officers out on injury leave and officers in the academy. And the PD is currently in the process of implementing detail software that'll improve the process for managing details and processing detail payroll. Council on Aging, the dementia-friendly process is going well with the action group, and the Memory Cafe has been a huge success. Eventually, there will be free staff trainings on customer service with people with dementia. The Council on Aging director has coordinated a sign language training that will be opened up to one staff person in each department that deals with the public, and that will be for 1 hour each week for 5 weeks. The land use director reported that the planning board has finalized a draft bylaw for recreational marijuana, and the public hearing will be on February 25th and a second date to be determined. The planning board will have 7 articles that relate to marijuana for the annual town meeting, 6 of them being prohibition articles and 1 article for regulation. The DPW director discussed the possible outsourcing of vehicle maintenance for the more technological vehicles that are seen by the mechanics. The assessors, the forms of list for personal property bills were sent out at the end of December, and there were over 5,300 accounts. The deadline for abatements is February 4th, and they also reported the land values increased 8 to 9% for the last valuation of properties. The cable, there have been 3 replacements for vacant videographer positions, and those have been filled. And PAC is currently doing 50% of their own programming, which is successful. Currently, they are showing a dementia-friendly public service announcement and the Knights Roundtable with the superintendent. An update on our insurance for loss control, rewards, credits, and new OSHA requirements. Our insurance risk management representative from Maya joined the first half of the department head meeting to discuss reward trainings that Maya offers, webinars, and other best practices that we are doing that she will submit for us to maximize our percentage discounts on all the categories towards our property, general liability, and workers' comp insurance. Also, our insurance representative has been instrumental in helping the town address the new OSHA safety standards that all municipalities are now subject to effective February 1st. The payroll and benefits coordinator has been designated the worker safety representative in regards to the new OSHA safety requirements. In regards to this, the town has hosted OSHA trainings in November and will be hosting another one in April. And some announcements, the planning director or land use director already referred to the planning board public hearing on February 25th at 6:35. That meeting is for to discuss recreational marijuana and some other just attendance at meetings. I attended the sewer commission meeting on Tuesday, January 29th, the dispatch admin board meeting on Thursday, January 31st, and a dispatch negotiation meeting I'll be attending tomorrow in Devon's. And the town clerk, just an announcement from her that dog licenses are due April 1st and will be made available in February.
Great.
I had an insurance question for you. Have you been able to ascertain what, if the skate park comes to fruition, what effect that will have on the town's insurance?
As far as liability, we're covered by liability. It's under our current, there's no added coverage there.
Okay, so the town will pay nothing for insurance for the skate park?
If it were property damage, and it would, if you're talking about putting a claim in for property damage, that I would have to look into further. So I'd have to figure out the value, and we have a deductible, so we would be paying a deductible for any claims.
Yeah, I just think, the insurance information has to be a part of the skate park discussion.
So it,
I think the liability is the big issue. I mean,
Yeah.
property damage, it's like any other facility we have, you just insure it for, for what it's worth.
So what will that cost, John?
Yeah.
which we don't have, I don't think, a firm figure on that as well. The number has fluctuated a lot.
Yeah, well, we'd have to see what we build and what it's worth, and then they'd have to give us a quote on if that increases what it used to be. Because we're paying a certain amount of insurance on the unimproved property where it is.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may ask Heather a couple of questions. One was, did we approve 5 ballot questions for the marijuana article, or the marijuana ballot questions, and now there's a 6th? Do we have to approve an additional one?
Yep. And I think the land use director will, but they'll be coming back before the board.
Yes, there's a memo coming that will address that. The uses were expanded to include research per the request of town council. So in the coming week, I'll send you a memo that explains that and makes another recommendation.
And then we'll have to just vote to
Correct.
put that on the ballot to have 6. Okay. And then the other question, thank you, Adam, was about the complete streets and the prioritization plan. And I've spoken about this in the past, prior to the fact that the one we applied for failed. And I don't remember the specifics on item 1 or item 2, because I would have been a strong advocate for item number 3, which I think fits very well into what they're looking to accomplish with complete streets in terms of connectivity and recreation and accessibility. And number 3 was adding accessibility to the town beach and sidewalks in the Whalum area, and that being one of the densest parts of Lunenburg, I think bringing walkability to that area was really fitting to what Complete Streets was looking to accomplish, especially because I find the town beach parking situation in and of itself to be dangerous. And so I was wondering, you say that you meet with the engineering firm and you meet with the DPW director, why we've not brought this process back to ourselves and to the citizens to look for input on not what a small group thinks the priority should be, but does the community have input on what they would like us to apply to? It looks like the deadline's April. I was wondering if we could put on our agenda and maybe even in a public way, take a look at those top items, take a look at what they're looking for, because we failed to get any money towards really a center of town project, and it sounds like we're asking again for the center of town and Memorial Drive, where maybe have a little discussion if we'd more likely get the funding if we look at other projects. I mean, I think Project 3 was a really great fit for what they were looking to accomplish. So can we bring that back to the public before we try again?
It was going to come back to the board, but we can try to move that up and have, like, the DPW director and the engineer here as well to discuss that. Although the village area and Memorial Drive improvements were in that initial application, it was for a large sum of money for all three projects together, where because there's such limited funding, and this is why we weren't approved, and why 10 out of 11 applications that were approved were only partially funded.
But if I remember, that night I asked who picked that one. And I guess the engineering firm and maybe the DPW director and yourself picked that item to begin with, and I don't know why we're not looking at these grant opportunities and discussing them more publicly and getting input on what the community's looking for. Again, I think the item number 3 of improving walkability in Whalum was a great item, and it never even was discussed. And so I feel like when we're looking for grants, we should really see what fits what people are looking for. Because even when we applied the first time, I remember when I heard the presentation, I was really surprised because we never discussed picking that item to apply for. So I would like, where we have till April, to see if we can get input on applying for these grants. What are people looking for? And connectivity to the town beach in an area where there's so many people who would be walkable really suits, I think, the intent of Complete Streets. Walkability in the center of town, and it can have improvements, but I think there's other places that could really benefit too, and rather than decide, I'd like to discuss it and maybe have a little public hearing on it, because it's not really, grants and stuff are being applied for without any input from the community.
You know, I agree with you about the town beach area. It's appalling.
It really is. And it's a lovely run beach, and it's a great asset with the swim lessons. It is so dangerous, and there's so many people that can walk there in terms of distance, but not in terms of safety. And that was prioritized as item 3, and we know this one we already applied for failed. Well, if we have a second chance, maybe we should try something a little different.
Well, I don't, if I can say, it didn't fail, this project didn't fail. Our entire application didn't get funded, but it was also lumped in with 2 other projects. And part of the reason, and this is all subject to change, that's why it's a draft proposal back to the board, was we looked at the level of funding each project required, and the Town Beach project was, if I remember, around $350,000, which this project was, I think, $150,000. So we're looking for what do we think is a good application, which would be most successful because of the limited funding. That checks all the boxes that meet Complete Streets requirements. Okay. It definitely is all subject for debate.
If we have the opportunity to.
Mm-hmm.
That's
why it was coming back. Yep, it was coming back.
And
to the board.
In terms of the scope of the project at the town beach, even if what they're projecting as a plan at the $350,000, you still be able to bring huge benefit to the safety there at 100,000. So just as you may segment this project, you could look at what was offered in item 3 and segment that too. I just think it should be discussed by us and not just decided by a small group.
Yeah, and if we could just get it started, do a piece of it.
Yeah, it's such a need. To fund something on Memorial Drive, I'm on Memorial Drive all the time. My kids play at an abutting property. I don't feel in danger there in terms of walking or connecting to all the opportunities in the area, but I mean, I fear every swim lesson morning, and I'm not trying to be dramatic. It's a very dangerous spot that could have really improved accessibility and safety. And I just think these things should be decided by elected boards. They should be decided by input from the community and not decided by a small group that's just picking what to fund when it comes to grants.
We weren't choosing the project. We were presenting a
Who chose
recommend.
it?
We discussed
When we
a
applied for, who
proposal, what
chose
we
it?
would present to the board. That doesn't mean it's chosen at that point. The board
We
still
applied
has,
for a specific one that was chosen by I don't know whom.
that proposal came to the board.
That proposal came to the
We
board.
didn't. I remember that meeting. We didn't vote to, we were presented the one that was already chosen, because I remember speaking out like, when
And
was
we
it?
voted to propose that as our first pass. We'll put it on the agenda and we can discuss it again. Is that it on your?
That's all,
Madam
unless
Clerk.
there are more questions.
Okay.
This may not be a capital, I'll save that question.
Okay? Okay. Okay, our 7:25 meeting is with Ecological Fibers of 40 Pioneer Drive, and we're going to hear a request for a tax increment financing, TIF, agreement. And I believe there's some people here from Ecological Fibers, and we also have our own town assessors to help us as well. Is that correct? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Quill. I'm chairman of the board at Ecological Fibers. Chris White is our chief financial manager. And I'd like to talk a little bit and tell you about some of our plans. We first came to, I have to tell you, words are slipping out of my mouth and don't come out. I had open heart surgery in September. It's okay, I'm fine, but things skip along a little bit. Anyway, we first came, I believe, in 1985. We built the first 30,000 square feet. Approximately 2000, we added 40,000 square feet. And came time for us to add a little more. We've been busy. Just made the decision to build the site out, so we put an additional 65,000 square feet on the building. We've not used government assistance in the first two. We talked a little bit about it the second two, or the last one, and lo and behold, we finally ended up that we didn't do it through them. We did it on our own. We started in early 2017 to go. By June, we actually had a meeting in June with the town manager and your land manager. I'd done a little work prior to that, but anyway, we're off and running. By the time we figured it all out, we've got the building half built. We finished it anyway, and we got our first tax bills. We went from approximately $11,000 a quarter to, well, if you total it out, about $28,000 a quarter. So one of the things that we had a visit with Heather, and the plant was packed, if you remember. I mean, there were very few straight lines left. We were kind of just inventory. A little background is the business here was in the publishing industry, the actual manufacturing of the hardcover books in the publishing industry. We supply about 90% now, about 60% when we moved to Lunenburg. And it's fast turnaround. When I started, it was 30 days to get books made from a manufacturer in the publishing industry. By 1985, it is 6 days. And if you don't have the material, you don't have the business. There used to be 4 of us. We're now 1.5. The other half is slipping away, and we'll be 1. We got people who do a great job, work hard, and understand the mission and how to do it. Anyway, we had a good meeting. We talked about it. We've subsequently canceled 30,000 square feet of rental space in Leominster, moved that material over in later September, October. So we're sitting there, we're doing pretty well, except if you came the first time, you could hardly get around. If you come now, you'll see that we've been able to split that up. We've been able to take all of the stuff in the manufacturing area that wasn't supposed to be there in the warehouse, move it around. It looks like we could grow in both places with plenty of time. However, it's my decision. We'll live with the extra space, and I think we'll fill it. So we came back to our thinking, and it was quite hectic, really hectic, the last month or so, last 6 weeks, in and out of Worcester, and anyway, long and short is the $28,000 a quarter is a pretty steep jump from where we are. We talked with a number of the state people early on in the project. We went back to them, but we found out in the end they weren't really involved. It was a town decision. And that's when we started talking to Heather. So we have some financials for you to look at. You can take a look at it. We're here. We've still got extra inventory in our plant that we have to go through, but we're not going anywhere. I was thinking about a comment that was made, it was Leominster, and I said, look, I grew up in Clinton. I'm old enough to remember the last time Clinton beat Leominster in a football game was 1948. So I said, we're not moving. We're here. So, and we have a good relationship. Unfortunately, we're about as far away from you as we can get. I did see that you had got a newspaper running again. It was interesting. So hopefully we'll grow. We ship to all 7 continents. We're growing, and we're growing with some of the things, or a good number of the things that will come here. Chris has copies set. He can give you one of what we've got and what's in it.
Yeah.
What we did originally in the applications and who we talked to, and how we were just out of line where we were at. So we'd like you to take a look at it. If you think it's within the town's best interest, come up and give us some help. We'll put the money into new equipment. We're doing a new sheeter today as we were speaking. But I think that the management team is in the family, my brother. Got people in line, and I think we'll be here for a long time.
So the taxes kind of doubled when you doubled your space?
Did a little more than double. I bought a little piece of land down on the just on the corner, because the traffic there is busy. It had an older house on it that was in really disrepair, and we bought it, tore it down, replanted it. We will not use it. It makes no sense for us to use the property. It's just aesthetically fine where it is. That was based on it was based on 100,000. It's gone to 250 this time. So there's been some, and there won't be any changes as long as I'm there, and I doubt anybody ever will. We'll leave it alone. So we think we're paying a lot. We don't mind paying it, by the way. If we talked about a 10-year program, because those were the programs that people were talking about close to 20 years ago. But it's your town. We're here. We want to be fair, and you see if you think you can come up with something, great. We'll put it into equipment. and that will help.
I think that's kind of, just to add on to what Steve said, you know, the relief that we would get from, you know, a financing agreement would be put into, you know, hopefully increasing headcount. We've got 3 or 4 machines we're looking at. You know, we have the space on the floor now, so obviously right now we doubled the space that we have in the building, but we're not really generating, you know, the equivalent of, you know, I guess, activity, you know, that at this point. But, you know, the plan in the next 3 to 5 years is to add machines, you know, increase headcount by, you know, hopefully 5 to 10%. You know, we're about 65, 70 employees right now at that location, so that would be the goal, I guess, that what we're trying to do with, you know, if we were able to come up with a financing agreement to provide a little bit of relief, you know, from the tax money. You know, obviously, once have the space completely filled, we have the machines and increased headcount, you know, our operations are, you know, definitely, I think they'll match what we're currently looking at for a quarterly bill, for sure, so.
And you're welcome.
Just so I understand, because
You're welcome to come and visit anytime.
I think I got lost just a little bit. You expanded your physical footprint.
Yep.
Do you have more land that you could go even bigger at some
No.
point, or you're pretty much as big as you?
At this point, we're maxed out, you know.
The first time when we bought the land from Crowley, Jerry Crowley, it took me about an hour to tell him what we wanted, and we got a building.
Okay.
That was 30,000 square feet. The second time, I talked to the Marathi brothers out of Clinton, who I'm about third cousins with, and that took about a half an hour. And we just did this one, and it took about 4 months. Just the paperwork, I mean, what was my second grade teacher's name? One of the questions with the engineers. Believe me, I don't want to go through it. I'm not going through it again. I have some brothers, I have nephews. We're a pretty tight group. I have nephews calling all around the world. So we're going to be here for a while. Yeah, it's been interesting. So it's harder than up here than our competitors were. Half of them were Massachusetts companies that went south. Mm-hmm. They're gone. But the people here work hard. Everybody works hard. We've been fortunate. And I would say chances of us getting most of it, we got 90%. Our competitors are a paper company, a big paper company. We try to run a tight ship and quick deliveries, and we do. So, and like I said, you'll come back, if you walked in, you'd say, the old part, why did these guys build a building? They got plenty of room. But if you walk in the back, we got plenty of stuff there. We need to deliver usually in 3 to 5 days. Books are ordered on Monday, have to be in the publisher's warehouse on Saturday. So we fill the spot. Good. Anything else? Then they will see some of the correspondence we had, the tax receipts, and if there's something that we did not do and we need to do, we'd be more than glad to fill that out.
So I guess I'd like to ask the assessors why the real estate tax went from 20 to 53, right?
It's all based on valuations and the square footage of the property.
It was 40,000 for the year on the first 2 parts, and it went up 26,000 on the first 2. So I assume the next one will be the same. We paid the first one last week before the month ended as it wanted.
Our regional assessor is here.
Yeah, Harold, is there a way to Reader's Digest version what a TIF is for us and the citizens?
Oh. Hi.
Pleasure. It's been a couple of years.
It is. Nice to see you again.
Likewise. I'm joined by my colleague, Diane Peterson. I have a lot of experience with TIFs, primarily at Devens, Marlborough, other communities. So I can share with you what I know about TIFs. The term TIF, tax increment financing, I think is actually misused in Massachusetts. It describes a different vehicle for financing municipal improvements in other states, but somehow we've adopted the term TIF, tax increment financing. What essentially happens, and this is a bit of a unique circumstance here because usually I'm approached early on before an addition or a building's even built. And the commitment from the owner is to bring to the community a new taxable property and a certain number of jobs. And there's a commitment in the TIF agreement to bring both the employment and the eventual taxable assets to the community. So in a TIF agreement, the increment piece represents the difference between the before value and the after value. That is, the before value before the improvement might be made. In some cases, it might be vacant land. In this case, it would be the difference between the property before construction and the value of the property after construction. That difference then would be under a TIF agreement subject to an annual discount, typically a declining discount. I think Diane passed out 3 different scenarios that she had pulled together for you. I believe the first page shows a declining 10-year schedule, and then a quicker
Back to the full tax rate.
right.
10, 8, and 5.
So it basically eases them into the tax increase.
Right.
Does.
Wouldn't we all like to be eased into our tax increases?
But again, in a, I don't want to say normal, nothing's normal anymore, but in a traditional negotiation like this, it's because a business owner like Mr. Quill is considering doing this, and Leominster wants him to do it there, and Lunenburg wants him to do it here, and Clinton wants him to do it there, and that's what this is all about. In this case, you like it here, you went ahead and did it,
Yeah.
and you grew in our town, and that's wonderful. And now is there anything we could do for you? Am I getting it pretty much right?
And I live in Lancaster.
Right.
Yeah, I guess we had a meeting and we talked a little bit about it. One point we said, I believe the original one was 10 years, and 10% a year. We're a little flexible.
And it
Hell,
just
we're gonna be there and do it.
concerns the last part?
Excuse me.
The first part stays the same? Or does the whole bill?
So the valuation before the expansion would be the base valuation. The increment is the difference between that base valuation and the final valuation of the property after the...
But the final is both. The final encompasses what was there
Right,
plus what we
exactly.
added to it.
What was there stays at where it is, and what is new is split off. So we pay our old taxes for the standing building that was there. The new piece only gets the break on the taxes for a period of time. So we pay the old taxes were around 44,000 for 70,000 square feet. And this would be, in the second one, whatever that particular one was, the way it is now, it would be 32, 64,000.
Yeah.
So basically about $105,000 a year. So, but the new thing pays 100% of what it's supposed to pay.
Yeah. I didn't have the pleasure of checking the math, the actual tax for the year.
So this is our old
These are
quarterly
the
now.
last
Yeah.
2 quarterlies. This is the current.
Yeah,
new
so
amount.
you can't take that number and multiply it times 4.
Okay.
Because because we're playing a bit of
Based on
catch-up
taxes
here,
now, though,
the
not
actual
taxes
tax
in
for the
10
year would be, if I can find my glasses here,
70.
Base building value, if they had done nothing, this shows it escalated over 10 years.
53. So it goes, so
Assuming
the
2.5 every year.
valuation,
No, this is what it looks like now, and this is the,
I'm sorry, the tax, full-year tax would be 53,000, not 100.
No, I don't think so. Because if you look here, here's the next one, in 2419 is 26,000.
Right, we're capturing the entire increase for the year
In
on
two
the third and
bills
fourth quarter.
instead of four.
You're right.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you compute the,
Oh, it's only, yeah, it's only the difference. It's only the difference.
Got it. I see what you're saying.
so when you get your preliminary bill next July, it will be not based on, it'll be a much lower amount than the
The annual
26.
divided by
Yeah.
4. Okay.
It'd be the annual divided by 4, exactly.
All right. I was assuming the 26.8 was the new quarterly number because we didn't even have access to the building until Q3 of 2018. So I assumed.
It's a,
Okay.
So what would the first 2 quarters be?
so
The third quarter was,
the total tax for the year with the new structure is 53,
Yeah, okay, that's what I
1,600.
thought.
yeah.
That's
So it
just
went
2
from
quarters,
20,
though.
so no, it goes from 22 to 53.
Because the first and second quarter installments were based on last year's assessment, which didn't include the building, in effect, Ecological Fibers underpaid their bill for the year. We're playing catch-up in the third and fourth quarter, but the basis for taxation will be different going into the next fiscal year.
It's like the chart has it at 75,801.
why would we have a whole
The year,
year
though,
at that
not
if we only
53.
had it for less than
Well,
half of
they
it?
don't, that's because they didn't
So,
understand the bill.
No, he's saying it's 53 for the year, but
Yeah,
it's
right.
higher
The
than that.
final
But no,
assessment
it's
hasn't
not.
yet been
If we look at
established.
this,
What
it's
we
53.
determined on June
They just don't
30th, which is
understand
our
the bill.
cutoff date, was what was in
Actual real
place.
estate tax is 53.
And
Okay.
according to our
More
records, we're
because
showing
they have
that
to
the
catch
building
up,
was
'cause
about
these are the
80%
third and
complete
fourth
based on
quarter.
building records.
Okay.
Yeah, when was that?
So there is,
We
June
we
30th.
finished up, actually, well, we
So
started,
it did
we
double. It
we
didn't
got an
double.
approval to move around the 1st of September.
Because their space doubled.
Okay.
So basically, maybe a week into
Yeah, but I think
September,
this
we
is
were
their
bringing
information.
equipment, and inventory, not equipment,
Right.
inventory.
So based on building department records, we estimated that the building on July 1st was at about
No,
80%
it came from-
complete.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So I guess final amount still to be determined, I guess.
to be
but-
determined, it'll be
okay.
a titch higher. But it won't be 100,000.
It'll be more like 53. So their taxes doubled because their space doubled.
Essentially.
Yeah,
I mean, that,
well, 95%.
that makes sense to me. If I double my space, I know my taxes are gonna double.
yeah, the rub is that the operation didn't automatically double. It takes time to fill up twice the space.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
kind of a ramping up thing where they're bringing
I
jobs to
guess
the community.
Our revenues are the same they were last year at this point, I guess, to put it simply.
Yeah.
But obviously.
Just
the goal
because
was
the
to
building
expand.
doubled doesn't mean their profits doubled.
So,
Yeah, but they had to understand that as businessmen.
so just to give you an idea what the final valuation will come to, if you look at the second to the last column, before our meeting tonight, went in and looked at what the 100% valuation would be. That 100% valuation goes to $5.7 million, $5,773,000.
I
See that in the third column?
It's very difficult to just get handed all this stuff and try to understand it, because, we're not financial
Is
whizzes.
this from you or from,
It's from the assessor's office.
that's from your
Oh,
office?
okay.
That's what I thought.
And at 1896, which is our new tax rate, times that full valuation, it's $109,000. Am I reading that right?
That would be correct, yes.
100 and what?
109,000 at 100%.
So that is 4 times the
190.
26.
That's actually 90.
109,
No, 109.
okay.
Doesn't that become 4 times the 26 that we see on the quarterly? Because I took the 2 that we had, I mean, I took the 26, what was it, the 26, 8 something, and just times it by 4, not completely understanding, it came out at 108. So isn't that the
Pretty
109
close.
we're seeing?
Yeah.
So that seems to match what you were saying,
Yeah. But
that
I-
it went from about 45,000 a year to about 108,000 a year once you
Yeah.
get to 2020.
I think once we're at 100%, it looks like that. Based off the full value that you have, I guess, on that sheet.
Yeah, but I'm showing the prior year tax at 75,000.
Yeah, but the tax rate is 1868,
If you look at
and the
that.
full valuation is 4 million.
What was 2018? We have 2019, and then there's nothing for
I'm-
2018, so we don't have prior year information.
Yeah, but 2019 is only 90% based on the TIF, so you can't go with the 109.
So the prior year's valuation, land and buildings, they're not, I'm sorry, that line is empty.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Right.
So it looks like it was around 45. Does that seem right?
Roughly, yeah. It was about 10,000 a quarter, 11,000 a quarter was the last before the increase. And I totally understand the timing. I get your point. To backtrack a little bit, I know Steve had met back in June of 2017, and we initially discussed potentially looking at one of these types of programs and for a 10-year increment. And then, you know, I guess we never really heard back and moved forward on it. So that's obviously why we're here after the fact. You
How
know,
how many employees do you have,
close to 70 right
give or
now.
take? How many?
70?
70.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where you'll be,
No.
or are you growing?
We're growing. That's, you know, we're planning on adding machines and adding employees next 3 to 5 years.
And per what Damon had just said, if taxes were in 2018 were 45,000,
So
and then
if
in
we got two
2020
bills
it's coming in
on
at like 109,
It'll be
they've more than doubled, but not
26.
had the opportunity to grow more than just your space.
We're working on filling the
Those are the
space,
two.
buying
Oh,
equipment,
that's one
hiring
of the-
people. So
But there were two of them.
Yeah, but that
Sorry,
column,
for the end
just
of
to
the
be
year.
clear, that column, the
So I
109,
saw
and then
that
it goes to
this was
112,
first
and then it
and
goes to
second
116.
receipts.
That's
So
with the
I
TIF that
paid
goes
that,
down
and I paid
100%,
this one.
90%,
No, I paid the one
80%.
before,
There's no,
26.
nobody's done the math for keeping it at 100%, so we don't have a baseline.
There's two of
to compare
those.
it to.
Isn't the full tax, the column at the end, that is,
No.
that is what would be,
It-
the column second to the end is if full tax happened.
Don't we have,
No.
we have two of these in
Because the
26
column
now.
under TIF percent
yeah,
is reducing that by 10% each year going down.
third quarter and
Oh,
fourth
let me
quarter.
see, oh, it's 28, it is, right.
Yeah, we got third quarter and fourth quarter.
But, okay, I still go back to the fact that a deal like this is normally put together to incent you to stay. You guys are here, you built your thing. Is there any recommendation about what, should we be considering this just to be nice guys? How do we justify that to the town? And at the same time, I understand what you've done. Had you come earlier, maybe we would have worked something like this out.
We probably would have.
Right.
We did have that, the town meeting. I thought that we had to talk to Boston. And what I found out was, that towards the end, was this wasn't Boston's, the state's
Okay.
not doing any of it. So it's basically up to you guys. If it's fair, it's fair. If it's not fair, not fair.
You know, I
And I
agree.
looked at that and saw, oh my God, they're going to go up to $108,000 for taxes right away, off the bat.
Right.
So we're here. If you think it's fair, it's fair. If you don't think it's
But I
fair,
guess what I'm asking, and I'm not sure we can do this tonight, but I'm asking, you know, if they have a going business that they've already invested in almost doubling,
yes.
and they have 75 employees that work there, and they plan on growing that,
You don't count the salespeople, right?
is there anything we should be doing as a town to recognize that they're a good citizen and they're here, that we could justify to the citizens of the town? Because if we do nothing, they're gonna pay 100%.
So if I can comment,
that's what I'm asking,
Devon's,
please.
City of Marlboro, both communities having a very active economic development happening. They've got lots of land in both communities, zoned commercial and industrial. They're looking to build out.
Which communities are you talking about? I thought you
Devon's,
mentioned-
I'm just picking Devon's and Marlboro.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear the
City
Devon's.
and City of Marlboro as well, communities that I also work in. They have a very robust economic development program in both of those communities, looking to attract new businesses, principally from out of state, but even from other communities. And as part of their overall economic development program, they have as one tool in their bag of tricks, if you will, is these TIF agreements. So when a Marlboro wants to attract Boston Scientific to build a big campus there, they've entered into a TIF agreement. And then with that, there's the promise of hundreds of jobs that go along with that.
You know, I agree with you that the taxes are too high. I would like the tax rate to be lower for everyone. You know, I think you aren't the only ones who had sticker shock when they opened up their tax bill this year.
This just isn't based on a baseline growth. There's been a huge change, and that was that it's...
Yeah, they doubled the size of their building, but that was a conscious business decision.
Yep.
If I double the size of my property or my home, that's a conscious decision.
Right, and the tax is more than doubled, though.
Not much more.
Mr. Chair, if we can go back to basically the town's options at this point, this was Mr. Quill's opportunity to propose or pitch his proposal to the town as far as what sort of tax increment financing agreement he's looking for from the town. How many years, what percentage discount that would look like. Diane Peterson from RRG put together some examples that you have before you, so you could, give you some concrete numbers that aren't, they're just examples. But to go back to the town's options, a TIF has to be between, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 to 20 years, minimum of 5 years, maximum of 20, and discounts between 5 and 100% of the taxes. It would have to be approved by town meeting vote. So that's also a consideration for timing as well.
It depends on the community.
But this, whatever,
7 years or more.
within those parameters, it's at the town's discretion of what that agreement would look like if they so chose to move it forward.
So this is the first time, I've seen something like this,
7
but
years, you pay
for a couple
14%.
years now, we talk a lot about economic development and
2%
growing.
increases.
And I mean,
hear you.
I feel like if Mr.
this is
Scheid
one
talks
example
about communities that want to be
sliding,
attractive
discount
and
first
into
year,
these things, I
100%
feel
discount
comfortable
on
that we
Oh,
should
yeah,
consider.
sure. I see. Well, that's 10% a year.
I definitely feel we should consider it, but I don't,
That would
two
be
two
great.
points. One is I don't think we've ever agreed that we want economic development.
Exactly.
As a town. We've teed up, do we want to have that discussion? No, and I'm very serious. I'm very serious. Because every time we propose something, like marijuana, everybody says, don't do it.
I
But
don't mean
that's just one
controversial
example.
economic
May I
development.
please finish? That's just one example. And we put it on our goal sheet, and we put it on our goal sheet to explore it. All right? But I've never been convinced. The only economic development discussion that's ever gotten any traction since we've been talking about it the last 3 or 4 years has been in the farming and the, what do they call it?
Ecotourism.
Ecotourism. Right.
No, I finally looked up the definition of that.
Now, I'm not saying we don't want economic development, but
But I don't know that we do.
We've never confirmed that we did. There's a lot of folks that still believe that we want to be a quaint little farming town.
You know-
That aside, I think this is somebody who's come before us to ask us to consider something, and the town manager just explained to us what that would entail. It would entail us pitching that to the town with some parameters. I think our obligation would be to work with you to frame it in a way that the town could understand it. We're having trouble understanding it ourselves this evening. But, is this something the town wants to do? Is this something the town feels comfortable doing it? From a fiduciary point of view, I'll be quite honest. You're already signed up to pay the full amount. But
I paid it.
Yeah, and I would very much like to say, let's do something to help these people. They got the right intentions. But I also have to answer to the town when I make that recommendation.
Because if you're not paying it, we're paying more. You pay less, we pay more.
It's interesting because we came to Pioneer, the industrial park, because that piece of land was not in Leominster. We came because we knew it was here in Lunenburg.
And we're happy to have you. We really are.
I think it was okay. We're not we don't come up here in the center of town very often, but I drive through occasionally.
I drive through it every day.
The bottom line is, we were delinquent in finding out how this ran. We thought it ran with the state stuff. I had 4 or 5 meetings with the state people, wanted to put this plan, great plans for 20 years. I said, I'm not going to be here in 20 years, and I'm going to be gone. And it may be a hell of a lot sooner than 20 years. So we're going to do it. We'll figure it out. I'll find the money in trust. And my children's trust, my grandchildren's trust. We'll build a damn building ourselves. But by that time, it was June.
We probably would have worked something out. So that's why we are where we are.
It was June or July, or August at that point. So we did talk, and we had a reasonably good meeting. Nobody said committed to anything. So we're kind of maybe on the tail end for time and doing things. But you're right. If you want to grow, we could go down to Kentucky. The company could go down there. You could go into the southeast part of our country. The Massachusetts company, the 2 companies we compete with that were down there, were both from Massachusetts. One of them went in the 70s and the other one went in the 80s. So we think it's good. It's good for us. You guys can make your own decisions. If we get some help, fine. Doesn't have to be what we are. You don't always get what you want, but you might get something. So,
Mr.
I'll leave
Chair,
it with you with that.
if I may, go back to the idea of economic development and not debating any of the big things like marijuana that are on. And I'm a big believer in rural Lunenburg and things like that, and everybody knows that. But I don't feel like those issues, this is a company that's already here, and of course we want it to thrive. So I don't think it's about whether or not Lunenburg wants one thing or another. It's about just focusing specifically on somebody who's already a part of our community. So I just feel uncomfortable that we're talking negatively or positively about economic development, because economic development from their point of view is essential for who they are.
I wasn't the one that brought it up.
Economic development.
Because it should always be positive in the face of a business that's in our community. You should always say, yes, we hope the economy is thriving. I don't know why we would be negative about the development of our economy. That's confusing.
I think the economic development stuff that we did do, people did say they want us to support the businesses that are already here.
I hope they succeed.
So I'd be interested in helping them out with at least a 5-year plan, if not more.
You know, and I'm not interested in anything, because I think the taxes are too high for everyone. And what we should look at is lowering the tax rate for everyone.
Mr. Chair, may I ask Mr. Scheid a question in terms of what would be the most standard offering? Since there's examples here, what is the most normal?
It varies so much from community to community. City of Marlborough now caps all of their TIF agreements at 7 years. So 7 years would be the standard.
In Marlborough.
In Marlborough.
But are you able, are you able to make a recommendation on what you think would be the best plan?
I'm reluctant to do that because it
not your
really
place.
needs to be,
Right, it's not your place.
Well, we have to create something to offer to town meeting. Is that correct, Heather? So, I mean,
We don't have to, but
no, I mean, if we created something, we offer it to town meeting. So what I'm just looking for is what is the most normal option to offer, and then let people decide.
You really need to look at the revenues, so you need to look maybe at a 5-year revenue plan of what you currently have, and then look at how that fits in. So if you're looking at a 5-year or a 7-year or an 8-year, I think I did an 8-year, all of those numbers, using that in terms of what you may have in development already, future building, look at your land analysis, see what might be coming, and then
the 5
do
years.
some revenue projections. It might help you.
I think so.
And are you talking about loss of revenue as well? Loss of property taxes?
Well, this is a revenue loss.
Right, so
And-
you're
Right,
going
but
to
you're talking
increase
about
revenue,
projections.
You're taking it off the table. At this
Right,
point,
right.
you're taking it off the table. But also in that, the projections that were provided to you, we just did some analysis. What we usually do is add the 1.5% to the tax base. If you're growing, and as valuations we know are still increasing pretty much through the Commonwealth, so your tax revenue, your tax rate in that analysis may actually go down next year, so the numbers will be slightly different. So you could look at it maybe that.
But as the tax rate goes down, the valuations go up, so you still pay more.
We saw that in the first year, your tax rate came down. We looked at why it came down and saw that it has 3 significant new growth, some significant new growth based on 3 particular properties. One of those is Mr. Close.
I think we should tell them
So if you did something in
5
the
years,
first year,
20% a
you would
year.
actually have to take some money out of overlay unless you worked an
Or get it
agreement
done quick.
together to put that back.
Tell our money
So
better
once it's
out.
refunded, you can build that into the TIP agreement.
if this were going to make it to town meeting, it would either be, someone in the town would be advocating for it and helping us build a warrant article, or it would be a citizen's petition, more or less, right?
Correct.
Who would it be if it was someone in the town advocating? Where would that come from?
Someone within the town? I mean, the
I mean,
board.
It would be the board. I mean, it's not a planning board or the assessors. I mean,
Typically, the
who would be the one to kind of be the
the
chairman
endorsement
for it?
starts with the board
The
of selectmen.
selectmen.
Okay. Well, I feel we need a little more information or a
Yes.
little more discussion with, with an understanding of its impact. I do feel really strongly that had it been done in the right order, we probably would have done something. So to undo it is not necessarily giving away the store, but I would have to be able to justify it in some reasonable
Right, you know,
way.
the town needs to be run like a business.
Agreed. Agreed.
May I
Yeah, but
ask?
they could have come in,
But they didn't.
that's my
One
point. They
thing-
could have come in and tried to say, we're going to leave town if you don't do this for us, and made an argument like that. They could have tried to strong arm us that way, and then we probably would have agreed to it, but they just built it anyway, and now they're asking for some help, so
Yeah, I'd like some help too.
Were you saying that the agreement could start at a later date so it doesn't impact how things are budgeted based on the expected taxes that we're currently receiving? So you'd say instead of,
Structure the agreement, which, whatever way is, if you're interested in assisting, certainly we'd like to know a little bit more information about the future of the business.
Okay.
Prior to putting
Right.
together a package for you.
so if in this year we're anticipating that amount of money based on what we were projecting, we can still leave that and say that this agreement would start in 2020 or 2021 even, if we weren't prepared to make the change?
Right.
That's a possibility.
The only thing I would say is, if you do this, you actually, in a period of time that's determined, you get that tax back up to 100%. So it's not really on your house or your home. It's really something kind of special. And if it's, 7 years or 5 years or whatever it is, at that period, you're back up paying the town every year the full tax. So that's the incentive that most states use. And I would say, nobody seemed to really understand. We didn't. I didn't.
Right.
It's here. we'll survive, but we'll survive faster and hire more people if we have more machineries that produce.
Understood.
We have people in there working now, setting up a new sheeter.
Could we set this up to begin in a year from now? I mean, it doesn't have to be at the, the first bill after they build the extension, does it?
For 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'd like to recommend we take it under advisement and do some work on it.
That's all we asked you to do.
I appreciate it.
Great.
Maybe a little bit of homework for Mr. Quill, though, is we do need a local incentive application.
Sure.
We can get that application
We'll fill it out if you've got one.
from you, as well as, and
I'm old. Remember when I talked about telling you it was 1948? Yeah, in fact, we didn't have forms. We had the state forms. I got all of those, but we didn't have anything from the town.
Okay.
And it wasn't until shortly before we talked to you that we said, oh, you guys have to deal with the town. So we said, fine. We knew you always would be involved, but good. All right, and hopefully
Sorry,
we'll be
is there
around.
anything else you guys?
yes, one other thing, do you have any type of written business plan about, expansion and what you discussed about, in 3 to 5 years, you'd be adding headcount and additional personal property?
Not from a commitment point of view, but
Yeah.
a strategic plan.
We have it in some form we could pull together and,
I think that would be helpful.
short and concise.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think that's kind of the questions we would be asking.
Right.
A meeting to talk about some of the business plan and the recent condo docs that were just
Yep.
recorded and what your plan was for that, moving legal ownership to another portion of the building and
I've got
answering a bunch of questions.
Yep.
4 nephews calling around the world right now. A brother, a very good president-to-be after my brother, and then hopefully family. There's 8 boys in the thing. Not to say anything about not being, only 2 girls, but there's 8 boys. So if they run the business the way we run it, they'll be here for a long time. So, great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Real pleasure.
But,
Okay.
hopefully, if we can help, you want to come and take a look? Or just pop in. We can do that.
Okay, we don't have any interviews, appointments, reappointments, or resignations, so let's move into our current business, which continues our financial discussions with a abbreviated version of the capital plan and then a discussion that Mrs. Luck has requested.
Timely.
Absolutely.
What do we got?
So you're up.
You starting with capital plan?
Yes.
All right. Got it. Did you sign these things?
Okay, I presented the fiscal 20 capital plan to the Finance Committee, their last meeting.
Harold?
Wait a second.
You guys are in the way.
That's okay, thank you.
Okay. So I'll go through these slides as quickly but as informationally as possible. So what qualifies as a town capital project in Lunenburg is identified in the financial policy, section 3.03, defines capital projects as items that cost $10,000 or more and have a useful life of 3 years or longer. The process that was taken this year, as in previous years, the Capital Planning Committee creates a capital plan that consists of all capital requests made by each department for the next 5 fiscal years. The Capital Planning Committee began the process on October 2nd, and all the capital planning documents were sent to departments on November 1st. and the Capital Planning Committee met with departments throughout November to review all the capital projects requests as a group. Based on those meetings with the departments and the budget provided by the town manager, the Capital Planning Committee prioritized all the capital project requests for fiscal '20 and provided the prioritized list to the town manager. And I accepted that plan, and that's the plan you'll be seeing tonight. So in all, there were 17 capital requests for fiscal '20, totaling $2,853,100. $126,500 were for general government, $1,403,000 for facilities, $132,000 for police, $1,010,000 for fire, $181,600 for schools, and I think this chart has been updated. So the police cruisers, there's a distinguishment between the marked and unmarked, and they're both proposed for hybrid cruisers. So that's why they're a little more than you normally would see. So for general government capital request, it included 5 voting tablets to replace the 20-year-old voting equipment for the town clerk. The current machines are no longer supported, and this total request is for $26,500. The planning board requested $100,000 for master planning to work on sections of the master plan and implementation of those recommendations. For facilities, the included a public safety building automation system that was submitted in fiscal 2016, and this will create greater energy savings by automating temperatures and has the ability to remotely control and monitor the system. And that request was for $16,000. Painting for the exterior of the teen center was submitted as a project in 2016, and that request was for $12,000. The removal and replacement of the fuel tanks at the DPW. The original capital request for this project was funded in fiscal 2018 as approved at the May 2017 meeting for $110,000 for the work to be done in-house. New estimates using fully engineered plans and outsourcing the project requires additional funding for an additional $220,000.
Can I just ask you a question at
Yes.
that point? If I'm not mistaken, and to address the public comment we had earlier, the 220 replaces the 110. It's
No.
not in addition to
It's
the
in
110.
addition
It's
to
in
it.
addition to the 110. Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So
Thank
what
you.
was done for 110?
Nothing.
Nothing yet.
But
Oh.
it was approved and it's
But-
in the capital plan, but
So
we
the
never
scope is
spent it.
330 now?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
The other capital requests for facilities include improvements to Wallace Park, would be resurfacing of the basketball court and fence replacement for $36,000.
And did Park and Rec put that in?
Yes, through the DPW. For police capital requests would include 1 marked and 1 unmarked police cruiser that corresponds to regular replacement schedule of the patrol vehicles. It's for the replacement of the chief's vehicle and an additional cruiser due to staffing increases. The anticipated replacement is with hybrid cruisers, and this is for $116,000. Also, there's a request for a replacement of patrol rifles and shotguns due to their life expectancy of 10 years, and that request is for $16,000. For fire department capital requests includes the replacement of the 1995 pumper, engine 4, and this has served beyond its expected lifespan. This is the 3rd year that it's been requested for a replacement. The town has done $65,000 in repairs in the last 4 to 5 years to this engine. Most recently, you heard about the pump replacement. And the replacement of the unit would see increased reliability, better safety for personnel and citizens, and decreased maintenance costs. There have been, and we discussed this at the Finance Committee, federal grants that the fire department applied for. These were for the ladder truck, but due to the competitiveness of these grants and the federal benchmark for eligibility, this grant was not awarded to the town. The replacement will lower annual maintenance costs for the next 5 to 10 years, and this total capital request is for $685,000. Picture of our current fire truck. The other, there's 2 other fire department capital requests. The second one being replacement of the 2008 ambulance Rescue 2. The vehicle is at the end of its life cycle. This is the second year it's been requested for replacement. The current unit serves as backup for other ambulance, but is not strictly a reserve unit. The unit is experiencing increased maintenance costs and out of service for repairs. There are stress cracks noted in the last annual state ambulance inspection. The new unit would become the primary unit, and the 2014 would be reserved for backup. The 2008 would then be used as the water rescue unit, which is used less frequently. There's no grant funding available for ambulances. Replacement would equate to decreased maintenance costs for the next 4 to 5 years and increases reliability. And this request is for $310,000. The last of the fire department capital request is for the replacement of 2 vital sign monitors. The current vital sign monitor is in each ambulance. They are 10 years or older and are obsolete and no longer able to be calibrated or repaired, but currently work properly. This was flagged during recent ambulance inspection, as this is mandated to maintain our level of licensure. It must be replaced regardless of replacement cycle of ambulances. There's no impact to the operating costs, and this is capital request is for $15,000. For a school capital request included Turkey Hill asbestos abatement project. This is the next to last phase, the asbestos abatement project at Turkey Hill. It includes removing the spray on fireproofing in room 102, 1 stairwell, and the second floor hallway. This capital request is for $162,000. The other capital request from the school is for a Wi-Fi upgrade at the primary school and Turkey Hill Elementary School. This is the last year to take advantage of a state grant that will provide 50% of the cost for this Wi-Fi infrastructure. And this capital request, the town's portion would be $19,600.
So it's definitely the year to do that.
Projects that were not funded in the fiscal 20 plan included repairs to the Ritter building as identified in the Vertex property condition report for $168,000. Repairs to the TC patios identified in the Vertex property condition report in years 0 to 1 for $786,000. Repairs to the Brooks House identified in the Vertex in years 0 to 1 for $165,000. And the plan only funds $50,000 out of the $100,000 capital request for the master plan for the planning board. So the total budget for the capital plan will be a combination of tax revenues, unexpended capital, and a small amount from a bond premium that must be used on capital, and the majority from free cash. And that is the plan. You also have in your packet is a 10-year look ahead on capital requests. This isn't going to project. First. Basically, for viewers at home, it's took all the capital requests that we are aware of from departments going out the full 10 years. And if you
Is that this?
look at the bottom line, you will see the total capital plan requests. It identifies the funding sources for fiscal 20, at the very bottom, and projects using a level of taxes and free cash going forth just to be conservative and using those numbers, but free cash will fluctuate depending on our certified free cash amount.
I just have a question on the Turkey Hill asbestos. Does this number take into account the money that was awarded to the project, or is it like a cumulative amount that they need?
So the 130,000 that the town received this year is used under unexpended capital. That's included in that 100. If you let me bring that up.
That was for work we did it was the project we did last year.
Yes, the 130,000 was the FY19 phase of the project, so that's why that amount is that amount. But we're using that 130 towards this year's plan, the fiscal 20 plan.
Okay.
And it's identified under unexpended capital. It's included in that 167,000. Those are all capital projects that haven't been expended. And also included in that 167,000 is the police department's fingerprint machine. They received a free fingerprint machine from the state, so that money gets turned back towards capital. Thank you. You're welcome. Any questions?
No, I'd just like to commend the capital planning group for their work. You guys certainly did a good job of prioritizing, and we're starting to see ourselves make a dent in some items that I remember when I served on that committee a couple of years ago. It was big ticket items with no idea where we were going to get the money, and you're working your way through the list without an override or a.
Definitely got to thank Heather for all her support in putting this together and the presentations and all that. And yeah, it does finally seem like we're making a dent in something that seemed an impossible task a couple of years ago.
Right.
Why does the senior center need a generator?
You're looking at the 10-year plan.
Yeah,
What year did they have that in?
24.
So, again, that's just their outlook. They didn't make a specific presentation to us on the full 10-year items.
Right.
So it's just a request that they've put in. I can't speak to why they need.
So we should take these lightly?
Well, it's anticipated
It's a
cost.
living, working document. It's going to change every fiscal year and be
Yeah,
updated. And
Just in my experience, Phil, it's like a year or two out is pretty solid, and maybe even got pushed once before. 3 or 4 or 5 years out is kind of a wish list.
Okay. All right, that makes a lot, all right, so there's no room, I'm not going to argue about that now.
Right.
Okay, great, thank you. That's good clarification. So we should look at 20, 21, 22.
Right. But it's good to see the 15 years, so you know that if a fire truck's got a X number of
Yes,
year life and you got
yes,
$1 million nut coming down, it's good to know what year that's going to.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
can see the peaks and valleys in the projection too at the bottom of it. So you can try to plan and even it out.
yeah, and
Right.
yeah, and looking at that specifically, just to level that out, I would suggest moving that ambulance actually to be replaced a year earlier when we start to get closer, just because it would even out the expenditures even more on an
But the
annual
sooner you
basis.
replace it, the sooner it gets outdated.
Well, no, I mean, the chief made the comment that our new one now has as many miles as our old one now, because they favor the new ones. They don't put all the miles on the old one, and it's just
Right.
they get worn out faster than you think.
And in past practice, we pushed out, and as a result, you'd have 2 big ones hitting on the same year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's why we paid 65 grand to maintain one that's 5 years over its expected lifespan. I'm just curious, did they have any discussion, is the fact that we put 65 grand into that old pump, does that increase its salvage value at all, or is that just down the drain money?
It's pretty much to keep it in service till this new one. I mean, because
Okay.
we have to approve the
Right.
capital plan and order it, so it's going to be a year and a half before
Okay.
we even get the thing. So it buys us a year and a half.
Okay, but by putting 65 in, it didn't make it 20 more than...
No.
Oh, no.
I don't think anyone's going to
along.
purchase that particular truck. It's been an issue for a long time.
Okay.
No, I too want to thank the capital planning committee for all the work on it. Damon, Heather Soroka, John Henshaw, and Carolyn Griffiths. John put a lot of work too into the worksheets, the Google Sheets that we use with departments.
Are all the department heads using them now?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. So that was especially helpful. And I want to thank the department heads too for all the time they put into their requests.
Now, I notice several things for the Parks Department don't have any price or years or anything, so that's just a gigantic
That's
wish
just
list.
yeah, put it on your radar.
Okay.
They haven't identified a cost yet or received proposals for that.
So when they talk about the improvements to Marshall Park, are they thinking parking, or they don't know?
And I'm not completely sure on the scope of that, or they have bigger visions for that.
And I mean, there are a lot of recommendations in the open space plan too. That kind of will file in here over the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good to get a look ahead.
Do you want me to move on to the 5-year financial forecast?
Please.
Okay. And I'll try to go even faster through this because this is an even lengthier. One second. So what is a financial forecast? It's an essential financial planning and policy making tool that projects revenues and expenditures and conservatively over a multi-year period. It's a living document that's continually evaluated and updated with changing financial data. And why do we forecast? It's to provides us a starting point from which balanced budget is developed. It projects likely outcomes based on historical practices. It enables you to look at what-if scenarios. It indicates future budget gaps. It projects revenues and expenditures conservatively over a 5-year period. It's also required in our town charter, section 4-2, section S. And bond rating agencies look favorably upon communities that annually prepare a forecast document. The difference between forecasting and budgeting is the forecast provides a long-term and big picture financial perspective, where the budget is a specific plan detailing service delivery in the coming fiscal year. So we kind of discussed the goals about long-term perspective, whether it determines fiscal problems on the horizon and enables you to proactively make changes for the future. The key concepts are using conservative assumptions that you continually evaluate and update. It represents the community's projected financial position, may impact your budgeting decisions and policy choices over time. And once you develop the baseline projections, it's relatively easy to adjust underlying assumptions to address issues. The tools used to in a forecast are Mass General Law, town bylaws, financial policies. You look at historical trends, use the debt service schedules, because those are known at this point in time, union and employment contract increases, and a variety of other assumptions. For financial management policies, we have particular policies that are included in the forecast relative to the baseline of keeping a 5% overall of the omnibus in the stabilization account, how free cash is used towards stabilization, funding non-reoccurring expenditures and the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund, as well as the OPEB Trust Fund. The financial policy on capital projects, and the financial policy on exempt and non-exempt borrowing and debt burden, as well as the OPEB funding, keeping or funding 10% of the certified free cash amount from the previous fiscal year into the OPEB trust fund. Let's get that when we talked about that. So data is for revenues. We use property taxes, state aid, estimated local receipts, and other available funds. On the expenditure side, it's looking at all operational costs to provide a certain level of service, including personnel for all the various departments, debt service, assessments, pension costs, the reserve fund, and other state assessments. For property taxes, we know our starting levy limit, and the max is the 2.5% increase to comply with Proposition 2.5. You add in new growth. The estimate used throughout the forecast is $375,000 for new growth. Debt exclusions are added to the tax levy limit and are known figures from the debt schedule. And state aid for the forecast used the fiscal 20 was level funded from fiscal 19, and fiscal years 21 through 24 assumes a 2% increase from the previous fiscal year. Local receipts, the forecast assumes a 2.5% increase for motor vehicle excise and 2% increase for all other local receipt categories. And for other available funds, fiscal 20 forecast uses target budget use of free cash, and fiscal years 21 through 24 does not predict use of free cash and uses the known MSBA reimbursement amount. So this is the chart that demonstrates the property tax. So starting levy, adding in 2.5% increase, the estimated new growth of 375, and the gives you your tax levy limit, and then adds in the known debt exclusion amounts to give you your maximum allowable levy. On the state aid side, the state aid revenue projection in the forecast level funds fiscal 20 and uses a 2% increase for fiscal years 21 through 24. The budget was released from the governor for his proposal and included a 2.7% increase in fiscal 20. So you'll see that number when I present my budget to the Finance Committee next Thursday.
What's exemptions, VBS, and elderly?
Veterans benefit services and senior exemptions.
Thank you.
So this chart is the estimated receipts, which, as I said, includes 2.5% increase for motor vehicle excise and 2% for the other local receipts.
So is the 1582088 what we actually received in FY18? Or what was forecast?
Yes, that should be, no, this is the estimated sheet. So I'd have to look back.
Where does it say what it actually turned out to be?
That I would have to get that for you. These are estimated local receipts.
Now, you would think that if when you know what they are, like FY18, you'd put the actual ones in because you don't, what's the point of an estimate once you know the actual?
That's also included in the forecast documents, just this is looking at estimated.
So further down, we'll see what actual is?
No, because it's projecting estimated receipts.
Yeah, but I just really don't understand why if you've got actuals,
Yeah, I know, yeah.
you wouldn't have them.
Right, I agree, that it would just auto-update to what actually happened.
Right. Because what uses...
We would have a more valid feeling towards future projections if we could have something concrete.
Yep, exactly. Thank you. That's what I was getting at. But you articulated it more clearly.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, revenues, free cash, and other available funds. Other available funds includes funds from the artificial turf revolving fund to pay for the turf field, and MSBA funds reserved for debt service. The forecast does not project using free cash as a revenue source for fiscal 21 and through 24, and does not use free cash for operating expenses, and it abides by the financial policies. In regards to enterprise funds, the revenues from enterprise funds are segregated from the general fund. These funds are self-supporting. The receipts equal projected expenses plus indirect costs budgeted in the general fund. They include sewer, water, and solid waste, and starting in fiscal 20, and this will be a town meeting vote, the upcoming town meeting would be for public access, moving to an enterprise fund. So when you look at the summary of total revenues versus total expenditures in the 5-year forecast, the grand totals include both the general fund revenues and expenditures and the enterprise revenues and expenditures.
So are these still estimates or are these actuals?
These are forecasted amounts.
Okay.
So fiscal 20 is next year, fiscal 21 and so on. For the expenditures, the forecast used moderately conservative approach. It looks at actual expenditures from previous years for historical trends. It uses the current budget as the base. Includes all current obligations and collective bargaining agreements and other employment contracts and wage adjustments. And future contract settlements and compensation plan adjustments should be analyzed separately to see the impact. And on the expenses, we look at these annually historical expenditures and forecast conservatively to maintain service levels.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Are the school expenses included in this forecast or are they separate?
They're included.
Is, are increases in the public safety staff assumed in here, or is this
No.
kind of level for without adding staff?
Well, the fiscal 20 includes the target budget numbers, but beyond that, it doesn't include additional officers.
Okay.
For expenditure categories, includes personnel and expenses related to providing a level of service, education costs, debt service, capital, group health and life insurance, retirement and general insurance, and amounts to be raised such as tax title, overlay, cherry sheet offsets, state assessments, reserve fund, special articles, transfers to stabilization, special purpose stabilization, and OPEB. The assumptions include adhering to financial policies, honoring contractual obligations, same level of service, includes 2% increase in most service and commodities, and level funds utility costs in fiscal 20, and includes between a 1 to 3% for fiscal 21 through 24 for utility costs, assumes 10% increase in retirement assessment each year, assumes 8% increase for health insurance each year, and the fiscal 20 column reflects target budget numbers that departments were asked to meet when developing their budget. In regards to the state assessments and cherry sheet offsets, they were level funded for fiscal 20, same as the revenue side for the state local aid, and assumes 2.5% increase for fiscal 21 through 24. It assumes a tax title cost of $12,000 for fiscal 20 through 24. Increases the overlay account by $10,000 each year on the forecast based on historical data. Increases the pavement management line by $50,000 each year. Assumes a 2.5% increase for the Lunenburg Public Schools and Monty Tech, and assumes level funding the reserve account. So this slide is a snapshot of each category of expenses with actuals on than that.
But that doesn't, it isn't the same categories as in the forecast, right? So you can't,
What do you mean? These are on the expenditure side.
oh, okay.
This is a snapshot of our debt schedule for the 5-year forecast. So conclusions that we can make from doing the forecast, it indicates a stable financial status using conservative revenue estimates, contractual obligations, and conservative expenditure projections. The revenue projections for fiscal 21 through 24 does not assume the use of free cash, but has expenditures on the expenditure projections that would be funded typically with free cash. Fiscal 24, there's a surplus projected due to a drop-off in debt. So, next steps in the financial process for the budgeting process include discussion of assumptions if needed, firming up revenue estimates for fiscal 20, reviewing all the departments' requests against the target budgets they were asked to meet. We will receive insurance renewals around the end of February, beginning of March, as well as other assessments. And I present my budget next Thursday on Valentine's Day. And the Finance Committee does their review from February to March. And the annual town meeting is May 4th, 2019. Valentine's Day.
Where are you in the process of above-target requests from the departments? Are you having meetings with them and?
I've already met with everyone.
You've done all that?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
It is a tougher financial year for fiscal 20 than it has been the last 2 years.
Okay.
I would like to request that where we have actuals, we replace that and get rid of the projections for FY18.
Yeah, I'll have to confirm whether that is just estimates. I have to look back through
Oh, I'm
all
sorry,
my
I thought that's what you
spreadsheets.
said.
I said I'd have to look, yeah. But that is an estimated receipts
Yeah,
worksheet.
that's what the title says. So I'd like to know,
Mhm.
you know, what the actual, because it's FY18, there's no point in talking forecasts. I'd like to see the actuals. And,
But you have to compare estimates against actuals too. Like when you're looking at those 2 years that we have, that's part of a forecast. You're looking
well, then
at
just,
your
you could
trends.
add another column then with the actuals, so we can see what the estimates were and the actuals. That'd probably
Well, you do
actually
see
be more
that at the end of 18, you see it quarterly, and you see it at the end of 18. It's just in a different document.
Right,
This is
so
a
why can't-
5-year forecast.
So, but why can't it be here next to FY18? What the estimate is and what the actual?
I'm going to take a wild guess and say it probably is actuals labeled forecast, but I don't know that for a fact.
Great.
I
That
don't
would be
know-
great to
I
have
don't know
that
for a fact.
confirmed. And how do we, now, you know, we're about 8 years from a very big school project. You know, 5 years isn't really cutting it because we have this elephant 8 years out. How do we account for that?
A forecast is really only good for 5 years. That's why
Then it should,
they're
then
done.
the forecast should be longer.
Then what it should be in is the capital plan. I mean, identified in the capital plan, because that would be covered.
The debt exclusion will be in the capital plan?
No, not a debt exclusion, the capital expense for a new school.
It's not our job, it's the school committee's job, but basically, I think they have to first make the decision on whether they're going to repair, go for a roof repair on Turkey Hill before they decide whether they're going to do it.
And then they
school
didn't
budget.
say, we're doing a project in 8 years. They said they the only thing we're going off of with this 8-year thing is they promised not to come back and ask for more money
Right.
within 10 years of the last project.
Right. And they said in 5 years, they were gonna have to decide whether to repair the roof or hold off
Right.
and replace the building.
Right.
But we don't even, we won't know for 5 years what they're gonna do.
I think we have to start planning now. I mean, you know, when I first got married, we each had a job. We knew we wanted to buy a house, so we lived on one paycheck and saved the other one because we knew we had this big expense coming up. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm just frugal. The town should not say, oh, it's 8 years away. We don't have to think about that now. We should be planning for it now.
You can think about it, but at the same time, 8 years from now, somewhere there's gonna be a major recession, and it's gonna blow all of this away, and it's gonna be useless.
Right. And your population figures are going to, we've heard everybody that we've talked to say that they're best estimates, but every time you look 5 years out, they're different than what they look like 5 years ago.
And some debts will expire, which hopefully will help balance new ones.
Not enough. I just think it's an incomplete picture when you're not considering that. I think it's a big
I think we are
issue.
considering it, though, Phyllis. I mean, we really are. I mean, is it in this year's 5-year forecast? No.
And it can't be, right?
Right.
Because it's not.
Right.
Well, so then we need a longer forecast. We need a
There's-
10-year forecast.
Yeah, you talk to any financial person in the Department of Revenue, the best practice is a 5-year forecast. Because it's like having a crystal ball. You can't predict what's gonna.
But we know what's coming down the road. It's not a wild prediction.
But eventually it will be within
But
the
the rest
5-year
of everything else within.
But we need to be thinking about it
We
today,
are.
not very seriously.
I agree, it's a very serious expense that's coming up, but eventually the 5-year will capture it. It'll be in there as it moves along.
And we'll go, oh shucks, why weren't we planning for this better?
As the further you project out, the less reliable your forecast gets. And I think the proper place to start with that expense is the capital plan. We haven't even been approached by the school officially that this needs to be, is on the horizon. It's
Yes, we have in our discussions.
not 8 years. It was 10 years the last time we had a discussion about it. And
No,
that
it was
they-
8. It was 10 years from when the new school opened, and it's in its second year.
The roof is in the capital plan, 5 years out.
I just don't think we're thinking about it seriously enough. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It kind of does lead into our next discussion, and this
It
is one
does.
that Mrs. Luck has asked us to take up again. A discussion about why do we automatically assume a 2.5% on top of last year's levy as our,
Right, I mean, even
Plan
in,
expression.
even in this language, it says to comply with Proposition 2.5. You know, it's like, we have to do it. I mean, comply is the wrong word.
No, that was meant as, we can't go above 2.5, because that would be in compliance, in non-compliance with Prop 2.5.
Mr. Chair, if I may just say that somebody was asking about the agenda item because they thought we were raising taxes 2.5%. So there was a little bit of
We are.
out there. No, that the taxes were that we're raising taxes on Lunenburg. It was misunderstood in the agenda as that we're having a discussion about raising taxes.
Yeah, no, we're doing it.
I'm just bringing clarity to the fact that of what we're actually discussing is not an abnormal or extensive tax increase. It's basically the baseline tax increase.
I shared your concern when I read the agenda, that perhaps that'd be the way it's assumed, but the overwhelming population that's here to worry about it.
No, but I just, before we start discussing it, can we clearly define what it is we're discussing
Right.
for anybody who, I'm assuming somebody's watching.
Yeah.
In terms of the agenda item saying we're discussing raising taxes, well, we're discussing basically keeping the raise the same versus lowering it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring clarity to that.
Our plan is to take the tax levy limit from last year, increase it by 25%.
2.5%.
2.5.
Woo! Okay, we are raising taxes.
25%.
I'm sorry, I missed the decimal.
You got enough money for everything.
The agenda is true.
Add a new growth projection and establish a tax rate. And that's what we've done traditionally.
Correct, I completely understand it. I'm just bringing clarity to the
Mrs. Luck,
agenda that we're...
Mrs. Luck has questioned, why do we automatically go
She would like
2.5?
to decrease what we're doing, and I'm just bringing, I completely understand what we're talking about, but I know that some people didn't understand the agenda item, that having the increase of 2.5% is what we always do. And the discussion is
Unfortunately.
about decreasing it to 2, just so that it's understood what the discussion is. Okay, thank you. And I do completely understand it. I don't need clarity, I'm trying to bring clarity.
I mean, the discussion we just had with these people is just a perfect example. We're thinking about, maybe we should give these guys a break. Maybe we should give the town a break. I really don't think we're thinking about it as people don't consider it our money enough.
I understand that, you've said that a lot. And I'm on a fixed income too, and people say, well, geez, this is tough, my tax bill's going up, my electric bill's going up, my heat bill's going up. Well, the town's bills are going up too.
Well, the town could have taken the e-permitting fee and assessed it to the people who are applying for e-permit instead of saying, nah, we won't make them pay the whole thing, the town will pitch in. When we looked at licenses, we could have said, we haven't...
money in the capital budget for voting machines. You want to charge the voters to come vote?
No, I want us to take a more serious look at what we're funding.
Yeah, but an e-permitting is a tool that the town uses to collect their permit fees.
Yeah.
And it requires software.
And the my feeling is that the people getting the permits should be paying that fee. It shouldn't be coming out of the town.
Voting machines. I mean, it's the same logic.
It's not the same logic.
It's a tool that the town uses to get its job done.
It's not the same logic at all. People who are applying, developers who are applying for permits, they should bear the cost because it's helping them out too. They're just the whole thinking is that's why we have to raise taxes 2.5%, because the town assumes more of the burden than it should. If we were running this more like a business, we would have raised fees since 1995.
We can't raise the fees enough to not raise taxes 0.5%. The permitting software wasn't going to get us anywhere close.
It's a way of thinking. We just, we're thinking about giving these guys a break. And, I think the everyday taxpayer bears the burden of all of these charitable decisions we make. And I think the town has to take a harder look. We have a new school coming down the road in 8 years. We should be raising the taxes no more than 2% for at least the next 5 years.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Sure.
When I saw this on the agenda, I put some thought ahead of time, and for me, I think lower taxes or less tax, that's always preferable, but when I first started coming to meetings, I was the, public safety advocate and, how do we have more patrol officers? We've underfunded that for so long. And then as you follow along, you learn everybody's unfunded items. And for me, the single item that got me involved was really how few police officers we have compared to other communities and compared to recommendations. And we're still so far below that, just being one specific item. I feel like there's such a enormous amount of need that isn't met every year, and everybody does such a good job using what's available, that to ask the needs to be met on even a smaller scale, even just funding the EMT, that was a desirable thing. That takes more money. And all these things that we need to meet, asking to do it on even less, I think I would feel comfortable considering that if everything was met at 100% and everybody was completely satisfied. But just looking specifically at patrol officers as something that I got involved with and was very passionate about, it's really not better, although there's a plan to make it better. I feel like that my main instinct is that there's not enough money to go around each year and everyone does the best they can, so asking to do it on even less, I don't know how that would be possible.
Well, a few years ago, the town wanted an override, and they said it would be Armageddon if they didn't get the override. They didn't get the override. Guess what? It wasn't Armageddon. The town is moving along. The town spends every cent it gets. So if you raise taxes 2%, the town will spend it, for sure. If you raise it 2.5%, the town will spend it. If you raise it 3%, the town will spend it. All the needs won't be met, but the town will spend every dime. And I really think we have to tighten our belts and figure out a way to make do with less, just like many people in our community have to.
And I agree with you on looking for places where there's waste or where there could be better opportunity to make money. But on the flip side, if we found a place to save 10,000, I think there's still a place that needs it.
Yeah, but we don't look.
Can I add to that? Because
Please.
I did
Please.
put together thoughts on ways we achieve savings. So we find energy savings through net metering agreements, looking for competitive electricity and natural gas prices. We look for regionalization and sharing of resources, which includes personnel. So dispatch would be an example of that. What Adam and I are currently looking for the building department to share staff. Those are ways we try to achieve savings and efficiencies. And that's direct savings to the town. Applying for grants to subsidize projects the town cannot afford in the operating budget. Requesting funding from state legislators for earmarks, such as the Turkey Hill Asbestos Abatement Project. Aggressively going after back taxes. Auctioning off foreclosed land and doing tax lien sales that recoup all the outstanding taxes, and making health care plan design changes that have saved thousands for the town and for employees. So those are just some examples I came up with in 2 minutes of time without going full depth into the budget. So I disagree that we don't try at every angle to try to save money and create efficiencies. I take that responsibility very seriously for the budget for the town and the taxpayers. I look at the forecast of tax rates going out. What is harming the tax rate right now is the debt exclusions. It adds $2 to the tax rate every year. That's a significant part of the tax rate. So that really has to be taken into account when you're saying we need to tighten our belts. Well, where are we going to tighten our belts? Where are we going to not hire another police officer? So we're going backwards with our police department. Are we not going to go hire any more EMT firefighters? Where are we cutting? We have new costs coming on for stormwater. You're very aware of those costs. That's an unexpected cost to next year's budget that has just more recently become apparent, as well as our recycling. The whole market has changed. It's a huge increase that we weren't planning on.
May I ask a question so the discussion's more concrete in terms of the available revenue, what the difference would be? Like at the 2.5%, we would have this amount. If it was adjusted at the 2%, we'd work off of this amount. Do you have those two figures?
Yeah. It's 577 we just saw is the 2.5% levy. At 2%, it would be 461. So it's $116,000 difference.
In terms of what would be available
Yeah.
to work with?
That's
Okay.
just, that's the 2.5% of the current levy.
You're looking at 19, so for 20.
You'd have to
I think
move it
it,
over.
yeah, it'd be probably around 120,000.
So that would be the difference of what you'd have.
But that doesn't directly equate to, okay, our taxes aren't going to go up 2.5%.
Right.
Just by reducing it, not going up 2.5% increase on top of the base tax levy doesn't equate to a direct
Right.
percentage.
But if you raised it 2% over 4 years, or 5 years, you're basically eliminating a whole year of tax increase.
Yeah, but the costs are going up. You see, if we were talking about whether we should go from 2.5 to 3, and we've built the budgets on 2.5 for years and years and years, you might be able to engage me in the conversation. But the 2.5 is what funds the level funded services we deliver now, allowing for inflation. So if you don't increase it for the next 4 years or 4 years, you've basically taken a full 2% or 2.5% cut. Nobody took a 2% pay cut. Nobody took a 2% medical insurance premium cut. Nobody took an electricity cut. So you got to actually go in and force fit a reduction in the services we deliver today.
So you built the budget just off the 2.5%.
Yes.
And then we've gone over this again. Would we maybe as a board just take a vote on something or just leave? I'm just wondering, because we discussed this, it's always here, but then I think we should make a decision to leave it at 2.5 or something like that, or I'm just looking to see, because we can keep discussing it, but I'm looking to see when we just confirm that this is the right path and move on.
Want to make a motion? We could do that.
I'm just looking for input on what we want to do as a board, where there's certain topics that we can continue to discuss, and I think lower taxes is appealing and makes sense, but at what cost? Literally.
It's something I think you need to look at every year too, because things change.
Right. And, maybe if we can get the debt down, that would be a huge help, but I don't see that with the new school on the horizon.
I would appreciate direction, because next Thursday I present my budget. We're full on, a path.
I think this year it's too late to adjust what is projected to be available for something that has had so much work already done to it. And then maybe we identify a time of year where we have the conversation that's so in advance of creating the budget.
But I've tried to have that conversation for months.
Do you think it should be changed for this year?
I think she should prepare 2 budgets, yes. I started months ago saying, when are we going to have this conversation about the budget? And it always comes down to, here's the budget.
See, Phyllis, I have to say that if you want to have a discussion about debt exclusions, how do you spend the money as it comes off, the money that's, we know that there's a 2023 drop-off in debt exclusion. If you want to have a discussion about do we ever consider going above 2.5 with an override, they're fair discussions. But I don't think you can ever have the reduce the 2.5 discussion and have it be early enough, because it's built into the system. And not just our budgeting system, it's built into the way the state runs, it's built into the way inflation runs, it's built into the way we get our insurance bills. I really do. And I agree with Damon saying you got to look at it every year, but you got to look at it in the places where you can actually say, unless we're willing to take a haircut like we did back when we went to a 4-day-a-week and
That's when the
reduced
override-
everybody's hours and did all that kind of stuff, unless you're willing to do that kind of reduction in level of services, I think you have to put the brakes on growing our tax rate or growing our debt. But I think the machinery to build in the 2.5 levy and the growth projections, and we make a pretty conservative growth projection, and for the last couple of years, we've been exceeding it, and it's given us some free cash, and that's a nice feeling, but that's a couple of years. I don't anticipate that to be every year. You know, I wouldn't want to get real comfortable with that either.
So when is the time to have the conversation?
I think it's when you're
October?
not when you're talking about the base budget. I think the time to have the discussion is when you're talking about what do you do with the reducing excluded debt, or what do you do with a big expense that's coming, or what do you do with, you know, I think we did a very good job. I'm very proud of the work we did on the debt exclusion for the roads, because it was a long-range plan that said, okay, we have it for X number of years, then it goes away, and in the meantime, we've prepared to build it into the operating budget through excise tax, you know, moving that into the capital plan. I would say that if anybody comes back in my lifetime and wants an override for roads, I'm going to be pretty upset, because I think we kind of had a plan that we should stay on top of the roads. You know what
Yes.
I mean? So the time to have it is when you look at big expenses, and it may be the school. I just think the time horizon's a little early on the school. They just built one, you know. They told us Turkey Hill can do the job for at least 8 years, and then they'll tell us, you know, what it looks like.
I mean, yeah, if you want to have a conversation about not raising it to 0.5%, but we really have to have a conversation about essentially a budget cut.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's giving up what? And then, I mean, at some point, you have to, like, point a finger at the school because they're the biggest
Yes.
chunk that can give some up.
Yes.
But no, but people care very strongly about their children's educations, and they're the ones who show up to town meetings. So if they get shorted and don't like it, they'll take the money from somewhere else that we needed on town meeting floor.
And they also have 85% of the employees, which is a huge chunk of the expense.
And even scarier than if we said, okay, let's find a couple $100,000 in the schools. Well, knowing how much the population's increasing, and they had to trigger a 6th teacher for the kindergarten, that class might trigger a 7th. So even if they found savings, they might still need that, but for something else. I mean, I feel like, I guess there's so many, I don't know. But I agree with what Jamie's saying about where to save the money in terms of not raising taxes, is in the projects or the plans, or looking at when the debt expires, not increasing it, whereas this is built into sort of a healthy budgeted growth for departments that are probably needing more each year than they're being given.
And it's not even growth. It's dealing with inflation and keeping level services. It doesn't even get you really growth in a department.
And
Well,
I
I
think
mean,
our
growth
department
in-
heads
yeah.
do a great job of starting out saying, I have a 2.5% restriction, how can I provide the same level of services? You know, that's, you talk about running it like a business. I really do think our police chief and our fire chief do run it like a business, and they do a damn good job of doing it that way. Because they start with, well, I can't spend more than 2.5%, how do I run this department?
And before I advocated for increased funding to public safety, that's what I most specifically did, was make sure I believed in what they were doing. So I studied their specific budget down to every little thing, and then I'm like, oh, they don't have ballistic helmets. Oh my goodness. So when you start looking at it, it wasn't, I was like, oh, they bought, $2,000 worth of pens. No, I saw what they didn't have. And I feel like they do work very hard with what they're given. So especially for this year, I feel like we can't make a change like this right now.
It always is. We can't do it right now.
So for the sake of just this evening and being 9:25 PM, do we make a motion or can we just, or do we just, are we then we just don't have agreement on it between one member and maybe the rest, but is it something that needs a decision? Heather was looking for more formal guidance so it doesn't come up again. So what would you recommend we provide?
Yeah, a direction would.
Yeah, I think we need to decide that we're either going to take some action on this or we're going to put it to bed for this budget year.
I mean, obviously, we're putting it to bed for this budget year.
Did you want to make a motion for what you're proposing?
No, because it's not going to go anywhere, clearly. But I would like to find a time when we can start talking about it.
I think we can depend on you to keep this in front of us.
Okay.
But can we agree not to deal with it between now and when we put this year's budget to bed?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. What do we got? We got some business to do. We got minutes from December 11th. We have warrants. We have a water commissioner's warrant in the amount of $7,457.58. Another water usage, same one, same amount. I assume it's different paperwork, same. Accounts payable in the amount of $592,180.19. Payroll warrant in the amount of $790,866.11. And an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $251,338.43. Any action file issues?
I had one thing. I was thinking about the senior tax work-off program, and I know that you have to be 60 years old or older. A one-person household income is $40,000. Two-person is $60,000. You make $10 an hour. The maximum is $1,000 off your taxes. I was wondering, is that fully committed? Do we have enough people applying for it?
I'd have to check with the committee. They received applications, I think, in December.
Yeah, because I don't know if I saw a little thing in the Council on Aging brochure or newsletter, but I don't remember seeing it anyplace else. And when I was at the MMA, a person from Needham was saying that in Needham, you can do the work on behalf of a senior. So someone else can actually put the hours in and say, I would like, Damon to get the $1,000 tax write-off. And I thought that was a lovely...
If Damon's a senior, right? If I understand what you're saying.
Not Damon.
Yeah, so give it a minute.
Right. So a senior that's in need can be...
Oh, now you...
such as yourself, can be, someone else can do the work on their behalf. And I thought that was a really, really clever idea, because lots of times people don't do it because they're embarrassed or, feel weird about it, but really could use the help.
Or incapable.
Right, and that, you could...
Okay, could you look and see whether that's fully subscribed or not? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other action file issues?
That's it.
Any committee reports?
I've continued to go to the planning board, but I'm really there as a citizen, and they're, just continuing on their process of preparing to bring the marijuana bylaws to town meeting and to vote. And then MRPC, it's been a while because the last meeting I missed, and their next one's this Thursday. So I'll have something to say by next week.
Okay.
I'm going to be at the steering committee meeting of the Central Mass Regional Stormwater Coalition tomorrow morning. Minutes and agendas of these meetings are posted on the coalition's website for all who are interested in the activities of these groups, whose purpose is to help the member communities, such as Lunenburg, fulfill the requirements of the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Permit, the MS4, which we now know is an expensive proposition for towns. Their offerings can significantly reduce the cost to towns. So I'm looking forward to that meeting, and it's going to be in Fitchburg, so it's in our neck of the woods for a change, so I'm really happy about that.
All right, moving on to old business, our payment in lieu discussion about this Settle with Solar. We have not heard back yet from town council, so we're going to defer that at least until next week. In terms of our Board of Selectmen goals number 2, we need to discuss, or begin to discuss warrant articles for Passios, Brooks, and the old primary building. Where are we on that? Do we have a game plan?
I guess direction from the board would be needed to craft articles.
When does the warrant close?
March 21st.
Okay.
So I'd at least like to take the APDC's recommendations or wishes into account for at minimum the Brooks House, and I guess we need a warrant article for permission to do an RFP to sell the building and some little property with it to probably be a single-family home would be the idea. And they did say their preference was that it would, first preference is sell it in place and because it's a fixture in the town where it is, so there should be some land to go with it. If we can't get someone to do it that way, then maybe we try to just sell the building, but it seemed like their wish was to sell it and keep it there and get someone to fix it up.
Now, if they said that we needed to do some sort of surveying work to make that work. Can you make your warrant article to allow us to survey and then do an RFP, or do you have to get the survey done before you do the warrant article?
I think doing the survey in advance of town meeting is the better.
Okay, and
because
we can spend this
a whole host of questions. Yeah, people are going to be like, okay, what's the land parcel look like?
And we can authorize this whatever small expense to survey it at least to the. To the
I can
point.
get quotes for that.
Okay.
Another interesting thing that...
But we'd need probably a next meeting to kind of roughly draw out what the board thinks that should look like.
Yeah, and I mean, so
some
recommendation from Adam too to make it just, a little
Yep, as far as
viable.
minimum.
Yeah, I mean, you know what the frontage is really, and just how far back you want to give them, but.
We want to probably, I don't know how it impacts the library too, that if they might want to be involved.
Well,
whether or
that's
not.
a second piece of this. I think that what we want to do is, in continuation of our TC Passios discussion, we said we wanted to have workshops like we had with the historical groups. And they don't have to be full workshops.
And revisit the historical commission, because we really missed a key element that night.
Well, they didn't come, but we can connect with them. But we want to have meetings with these three groups, the parks, open space, and conservation as a group. We want to have a meeting with the town employees and PAC, who have some requests for what their needs are as part of TC Passios. And then to get to your point, Ms. Adams, is, the butters, if you will, Council on Aging, Boys and Girls Club, Library, on
It's like with
TC
the Brooks House,
Passios and Brooks and that whole
it
thing.
definitely
right.
impacts the library, and we
Right.
definitely want to make sure
Right.
they're comfortable with.
But I would like us to aggressively, I mean, if we wait to have one workshop a month, that's going to go on for way too long. I'd like us to kind of put one of these things on each of our next meetings and make them a piece of our meetings.
I agree.
And the end result would be to kind of come out of it with the work required to do probably 3 warrant articles, one that has to do with the Passios, one that has to do with Brooks, and one that has to do with the primary, relative to, next steps.
That's aggressive, but we really, really need to do it.
Right.
And do we really need one for the primary to do what the APDC asked us to do with it? Because it's already in the select board's control.
No, it lost it. Adam Costa said that there was a vote, special town meeting, November 2016, where an amendment was made to the conveyance of that site, and what had been conveyed was unconveyed in that. And I remember he he confirmed that to me at one point.
Well, the APDC is telling us we got to fix it up,
No, I know,
Or
but the
it's fine.
selectmen don't have conveyance of that property anymore.
but we don't need conveyance if we're going to fix it up. I'm just saying we're
No,
not.
I think that's
gonna-
what Damon was.
Well, they didn't, they said either fix it up or get somebody to do something with it.
Right.
So same thing with Brooks. If we could, again, give permission to do an RFP for it. And that one, I'm not, again, we'd have to have a discussion about the land to go with it, because I wouldn't be so quick to give away anything in front of the building, because that could be a nice, if the Historic Society needs their parking
Right.
fixed, that'd be nice. Either could be municipal parking, or it could be park space, or whatever.
Or it could make the Ritter more attractive.
Any of
Depending on
the
what it
above,
is,
but yeah, I would kind of draw the line similar to, the Preservation District only cares about the front of the building.
Right.
So again, we have to craft an RFP, but their main thing is the front of the building stays looking the same, so nobody needs any space in front of it anyway. All the village bylaws state the parking belongs behind the building or on the side of the building, so anyone doing anything with it anyway should be only concerned with land behind it, so I think
Are
we
we
should
talking
keep
about crafting articles to sell these parcels?
our
Or to look for
RFP.
conveyance for a third time in a couple of years?
Again, I'm just trying to stick with
No, I'm
what
just trying to understand what we're trying to craft.
the
That's why we have
APDC
to-
asked
That's
us.
why we have to put it on the agenda and discuss it.
Yeah, the APDC asked us to, well,
That's just
fix
like
it up.
3 or 4 people, and I understand the recommendation, but how we're leaping to selling, again, I'm not following.
Well, they were commissioned, and they told us we have to fix it up or sell it.
Yeah, and they can take us to court over it if we don't do one of the.
Right.
one of
And
the
it needs
above.
$2 million worth of repairs in the Vertex trial, so.
If we're
No,
going to
we have-
use it.
We have talked about this at great length,
Yes.
and this isn't one we're going to discuss.
I know, and conveyance has failed twice, and it sounds like we're getting articles
Well,
ready
let's not,
to seek
no,
conveyance.
let's not confuse
And-
things. Conveyance didn't fail twice. We
were-
asked for different things.
And we're not, that isn't the topic
That
for
property
tonight.
was in
No.
old
And that's not
primary.
the topic for tonight.
What is the topic? That's what I'm asking.
To discuss what warrant, to schedule the next couple of meetings to discuss what warrant articles are required. And I believe the topics of warrant articles, regardless of what they look like, and we'll have a meeting to determine that, is the Passios, the Brooks, and the primary.
And what type of warrant articles are
That's why we need a meeting.
That's what we're discussing.
Which is
That's what we're going to discuss at the meeting.
conveyance. Okay. Well, I
well-
didn't bring this up. I'm just,
The recommendation I heard from
this is
the,
on our agenda.
again, I'm going from the APDC's recommendation, that at least from the Brooks, was actually conveyance. The
Right.
Passios, not the primary, again, I know we're gonna have to take several swings in RFP to get, to be attractive to somebody.
Exactly.
And if it's, whatever we have to do to not foot the bill, the $2 million bill, to fix it up should be on the table. I mean, if it's a land lease, that's fine with me. If it's end user sale, that's fine with me. As long, I'm trying to find solutions to not fit the $2 million bill to fix it up like they want us to.
I
which
mean-
we're required to do. It's not something we can choose not to do.
We know a great amount of people have discussed and worked on and had the concept of utilizing that land for an improved town green. I mean, so to just jump to the conclusion that we're selling it, I think is unfair to the amount of people that have spoken up and looked for alternative uses of the land.
But-
Not to mention that
we
a
have
member
to-
of the APDC said that the Historical Commission, although they couldn't make it to that meeting, is adamantly opposed to selling the land. So to say one group says we should, well, we got to hear from all the other groups. We haven't talked to parks, so.
But we, again, we're required to try to reuse the building. They can, it's not a demo delay in the center of town. They can say no forever. That's what the APDC has the power to do.
And they can also say yes to demolition. So if we,
But we have to make an effort to reuse the building the way it is. That's step one. If we fail at that, then we can pursue your town green or something else. But we have to make the first effort to save the building and reuse it.
Where was your passion for that with the diagram of the apartments that you had on that site? I mean,
You know, Miss Adams, you brought up earlier that we keep revisiting the same things over and
Well,
over
I
again.
mean,
I'd like to make a motion right now that we leave that alone until we deal with the one that we already agreed to as a board.
I don't understand that motion.
I would like to continue our discussion on the 5 buildings according to the plan of record until the plan of record is no longer the plan of record.
The one that he stated over and over again.
What is the plan of record? The plan of record is that a couple people want to sell a parcel of land and a lot of other people don't, because that parcel has had 2 conveyance articles on it. One was November 2016 and one was May 2017, and both times...
Is there a second?
Second.
What is the motion? What is the legal motion? That Katie Adams can't talk about municipal
Well,
land?
you can talk about it when we open it for discussion, but the legal motion is that we continue with the plan of record without opening the discussion to alternatives to the plan of record.
What is the plan of record?
You were on the board when we voted for it.
What is it? If we voted for it, identify the plan of record of which we are discussing. Heather, what is the plan of record?
Pursue the costs associated with moving Town Hall to the Passios building.
I think, yeah, the vote of the board.
I'm talking about Old Primary, though, not the Passios. So what is the plan of record for Old Primary?
To find a reuse for the property.
Where is that a plan? Where is there a record of that plan?
In the minutes when we voted on it as a board.
There's no end use. We have to find a reuse for it. And it's the mandate from the APDC that we at least try. We have to try to reuse the building.
It was a recommendation of the APDC, and they were saying that we were neglecting.
No, it was a letter from them stating to us that we were in violation of...
That we were neglecting, yes, the care of that property.
Correct.
But I don't think that they have the power in this town to say that we
But they
have to
do.
sell. So where is that plan of record? You're taking 3 people's recommendation to fix the building and trying to tell the community we have to sell property.
Well, they can, and made it clear that they're fully willing to tell us we can't tear it down.
The
So what's that
Historical
mean to
Commission
you?
doesn't want to sell it, and we didn't hear from them yet. So we're taking one group's opinion that matches what you two have been working on since 2013 and trying to use it as data point. We haven't even heard from the Historical Commission.
And I said we don't have to sell it. I said we have to take the necessary steps to repurpose the building, to at least try to repurpose the building, and the goal should be for us not to fit the $2 million bill.
Perhaps it could be Town Hall instead of TCP.
Because the plan of record, which I'm about to take a vote on, is to move the municipal offices to TCP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed? Thank you.
And I wasn't there when that was voted, so thank you for doing
Doesn't matter.
Well, I'm a member now, so I can't contribute.
Right.
It's freedom, America.
Yeah, but you know all about it. You read it several times.
Government moves forward and decisions sometimes change. If it didn't, women wouldn't be voting, et cetera. So we're allowed to project change.
When the board votes, things change.
Okay, and this was the first time we revoted the topic in about 2 years.
Good.
So now we know it's 3-1
Glad we did.
to, wow.
So, we are going to have a couple of meetings to craft these warrants.
Even though we already have them planned.
It might be necessary, at least for 2 of them, the ones with the library, the Council on Aging, and the Senior Center, and the separate one with the town employees and the PAC, to do them during the day. Would that be a major inconvenience to this
Major
board?
inconvenience. They need to be at standard meetings, in my opinion.
They will be open meetings posted.
No, I'm saying they need to be ones that are available for participation.
For you?
For the board,
No,
yes.
that's what I'm asking. Under any circumstances, could we schedule them during times when our employees work?
For me, you could.
I could, well.
Is it
maybe
worth
come in the-
pursuing, is what I'm saying.
Well, I'm more concerned about input from the community and having, say, maybe a public hearing.
No, we're not having a public hearing. We're having a meeting with concerned people who work in the daytime.
No, I
When we-
mean, on this topic of changing municipal land and municipal building use.
We will.
I would like
We-
to build in a meeting that's a public hearing And I'm far more concerned overall in
It
hearing
will
from
be
the
a public meeting, open to the
And-
public. It may be during the day,
No,
because
I
that's
mean-
when the people that we're meeting with are available.
I mean, not
And
me-
then the meeting minutes will be published, and I'm sure we'll talk about it until we're
You're
blue in the face.
misunderstanding what I'm asking
No, I'm
for.
not. I understand totally what you said.
No, I'm asking for a public hearing or a public meeting on this topic.
We know
Not
that.
a public
We know
meeting
that.
Right.
about employees.
We
a
know that's
public
what you're
meeting
asking
about
for.
the plan of record.
I think these will lead up to that, these focus group meetings, like meeting with the abutters groups, the Council on Aging, the Boys and Girls Club, and the library, considered kind of focus group, as well as town employees who work in these buildings, and PAC, who has an interest in a new studio, and they're been put on hold because TC Passios is in limbo, and what the future of that space will be. So I think,
Sometimes
Let's meet with
employees-
these people and then have a public hearing.
right, that would
Not
be
a public
my-
hearing.
Public
We
meeting.
will talk about it in public.
A lot of times, police department, they come to these meetings as employees about their departments. I'd rather stick to our regular schedule and invite them to attend.
Okay.
But
I would be able
besides
to
outside
meet during the
department
day if it was
heads-
more convenient for those groups.
Yeah.
Fine. I'll have Elaine see, check availability, and we'll see if we can get a quorum.
So for our next workshop for February, though, do you want me to reach out to
Well, why don't we do the one that would probably be at
committees?
night anyway?
Okay.
Open space, parks, and conservation, and see
Whether
if they can make the first one, if not, maybe the second, maybe the 19th. all right?
Okay.
And would it be okay to re-invite the historical commission?
Well, they don't really, we could put them on the agenda if they want to come, but I don't know that we want to drag APDC and Historical Society back unless they want to come.
Correct, just the
And
historical commission.
It's a more focused conversation with the three groups you mentioned, if.
Right, yeah,
if we-
yeah. I mean, they have every right to come and give us their opinion. They were invited to the last meeting and they didn't come.
They couldn't make, I guess the chair couldn't come that night. They had their meeting the following night.
But they could always come and make a public comment.
Well, they could come and be part of our agenda. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, just give them a
yeah,
second
I have
opportunity
no
to
problem with
come.
that.
I don't know
Yeah.
why we'd want to exclude them.
No, we don't.
Okay.
So we'll start with that and then we'll check our availability and see if we have to, or maybe we could do late in the day and kind of catch both. I don't know. I think that's it. Is there any public comment from the public? Any public comment from the board?
I just had one thing. Senator Tran's office sent an email about budget priorities.
Yep,
Will
it'll
we
be on
get-
next Tuesdays.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night, everybody.